A coveted chase to the end of the regular season leaves 4 races left. And after a meeting with one of Indiana's famed short tracks last week, tonight's a dance just a town away inside a cathedral of speed. We welcome you to KBRN's coverage of the 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series and the 17th race of Season 6 from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's the Brickyard, and we are hyped up to bring you the action at one of America's most prestigious venues. We're alongside Francisco Bacchiao for the ride. I'm Kenneth Bueno. Now, Francisco, of course, the biggest thing going into this race is that we don't have a lot of time left until we get the start of these 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series playoffs. We had a fantastic race last week at Indianapolis Raceway Park, and we go just a town away. We skip over to Speedway, Indiana, to go right to one of the best races that we might have over this season, especially at a track this big, this legendary, and this fun, especially in the combo that we'll have tonight.
I'm very excited to be here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Kenneth. You think about the history that resides at this racetrack in all sorts of racing, whether it's IndyCar, NASCAR, or Formula One, and the different layouts it's been used in. And there's just so much history with those yard of bricks you can see right there on the front straightaway that travel across the property here. That's the last bit of the remaining original bricks that was the racetrack. But an opportunity to kiss those bricks here at the end of the day in the virtual sim is going to be an opportunity for only one driver. And in the last 2 seasons, it's been Eric Schaefer that's been able to get the win, Kenneth. He comes off the win at Lucas Oil Speedway, IRP, and will he try and go for that three-peat here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
We'll just have to see, but IRP was a big curveball for a lot of the drivers tonight. A little more normal in that aspect. We'll take a look at the Season 6 schedule and what we have remaining. We've got Indianapolis, the big 2-mile rectangle tonight, but we've got a pretty interesting stretch, Francisco, when it comes down to the lead-up for the playoffs later on this season. We've got Texas Motor Speedway, the 1.5-mile track sort of in the middle of this stretch, but then you've got Iowa coming back to the schedule, and then, of course, Talladega Superspeedway, which will be the up-in-the-air decider for who's going to make it to the playoffs, who's going to be in, and who's going to be out on points. What stands out to you the most when it comes down to the stint that we'll have upcoming, and how tonight's race will play an impact on that as well?
As the races get closer to Talladega, Kenneth, it's less opportunities for drivers to make the kind of moves, and opportunities that they'll start to dwindle because you start having less races left until the playoffs. You have to make the most of the opportunities presented to yourself. The earlier the better, but you don't want to rely on Talladega. So the way I see it, after tonight, there's only 2 racetracks remaining before Talladega to make an opportunity, and that's Texas, which in the layout we currently have, it is not exactly easy, and then the Iowa Speedway, which is very challenging short track. So you have to capitalize here, Texas or Iowa. If not, you're at the mercy of the luck at Talladega.
And to be at Talladega, if you've got your back against the wall, we know just how difficult that is to make a last effort in a race like that, at a track that big and that unpredictable. And while we talk about how the rest of this stint is going to go to the end of the regular season, we'll talk about the situation in the point standings. This is the current standings after IRP last week, which definitely shook some things up. The most important, Francisco, is who's at the top of the board. Eric Schaefer was down 13 points to Lawson Peel entering IRP. Coming out of IRP, where Schaefer took the checkered flag, he's now a total of 17 points ahead of Peel. So it was an entire 30-point swing between being behind the 8 ball and now being at the top of the standings. But we'll look at 14th on back. We still have wild cards to consider when you look at guys like TJ Burskin, maybe even a bit of Luke Knupp, who's found himself missing the last several races other than Kansas, where he finished in 25th. You've got a 10-point spread only between 14th and 15th. That's Patrick Thompson and Michael Newbraw in that spread right on either side of the line.
It's very close, but you also have to consider the fact that Adam Aleshire has a win on the season, so that's a wild card spot. So truthfully speaking, that cut line at the moment is Luke Knupp and Patrick Thompson. So you consider the math there. There's a 3-way tie for the cut line between Knupp, Thompson, and Newbraw, all with the same amount of points. And Jesse Prees only being 7 points in, Tyler Murray only being 9 points in. So while, yes, those points shown there are relative to the 14th spot, Aleshire's win does move that cut line up 1 position because he is top 20 in the points. So if you look at guys like Lance Hill, Colin Forster being just about 40 points out, They have to make up those points as quickly as possible, Kenneth. We're starting to run low on races, but also big for Eric Schaefer and Lawson Peel. Official word from Tyler Murray is that they're locked into the playoffs after the IRP race. Ethan Fonseca or Moreno will try to do the same thing after tonight's race to try and be the first 3 drivers to officially clinch a spot in these playoffs.
That means it's only going to get more tense as we move forward. You make a great point there. Just before we head trackside to give you tonight's starting grid from Indianapolis, we'll take the overhead look and go with our KBRN track map, of course, with images provided to us by Google Earth. And this track, Francisco, has been around for more than a century, literally opened back in 1909, and it has been a legendary staple of racing in the United States. It's one of the most prestigious tracks. When you ask anyone around you, it hosts the Indy 500, it's hosted the Brickyard 400, which returns for the Cup Series this year. It's hosted Indy Road Course races. It has hosted everything under the sun, Francisco, and it's a legendary circuit that has taken part in every single season of the 4Wide Racing Series, including tonight.
And not to mention, Kenneth, later this year, it will be hosting a endurance race for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series. It ran a 2-hour, 40-minute sprint race there last year. I believe they're doing a 6-hour race there this year. So Indianapolis keeps expanding their bridge. And don't forget, it once used to host the U.S. Grand Prix for Formula One. They're no longer there now, but it certainly served its fair share of time and memorable moments. And here's now the grid lining up on the front straightaway with fans on both sides of the straightaway, Kenneth. One of the biggest attendance to this racetrack. It's able to seat 250,000 people. Think about that, 250,000 people. And when you watch those stands for the Indianapolis 500, it is insane just the amount of noise the crowd makes and how busy and how full it looks, and it's just an awesome spectacle. It's like Lee Diffie says, Kenneth, when you come to this racetrack, it's to watch the greatest spectacle in motorsports.
It is, and it is a full-on cathedral of high-intensity action and, of course, high speeds when you think about the Indy cars that race here and the stock cars that we will see tonight. You saw the beautiful pagoda there on the front straightaway with the yard of bricks lining the start-finish line, and as the field takes off behind the iRacing official pace car, we'll give you the starting grid of tonight's race. It'll be the 17th event of Season 6 in the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series, and on pole is the number 21 of Ethan Fonseca Moreno, setting down at 53.291. He'll lead the green from pole with Eric Schaefer, last week's winner at Indianapolis Raceway Park, looking to go 3 in a row here at the Brickyard after winning both in Season 4 and in Season 5. Brandon Hawken, of course, the standout rookie driver in tonight's racer over the season as well. He'll start tonight from 3rd. Lawson Peel looking to recoup after the crash from IRP just a week ago. He rolls off right behind his teammate Eric Schaefer in 4th. Kyle Benson from the 38th car will be in the top 5 to start. Jaden Porter, defending champ, had a great run at IRP last week and looking to complete the Indy double in style. Michael Newball with a fantastic Q effort to roll off in 7th. Greg Launslugger will be in 8th. Brandon Banks and Colin Forster to round out the top 10.
11th position goes to AJ Green, former champion of the series, with Kevin DeLeon from Skybox Racing in the 12th spot. Former champion Scott Healy will be in the 13th spot, with Adam Alshire, who's looking to stay in the top 20 in points position. Looking at the 15th position, league owner Tyler Murray will be starting there from his number 36, with Lance Hill, who needs to make a run at the cut line with points, is going to be in the 16th spot. Wyatt Brackett will be starting from 17th. Alongside him is Curtis Kelly in the 71 in the 18th position. 19th is rookie Ryan Pandiccio. Alongside him is Christopher Bishop in the 42.
Back in 21st is CJ Munier in the 89 car. David Brackett on his outside. That'll line up row number 11. Trevor Haley starts deep in this field, 23rd. Daniel Moore in the 77 will come away with 24th from qualifying. 25th goes to the 34 of Austin Reedy. Boy, he's got a lot of work to do. He's the first driver not to set down a queue time. And Mikey Neal going to be on his outside in 26. Patrick Thompson will be in 27th in the 88 car. He's fighting for a top 14 spot in the playoffs. Brandon Gillis will roll off from 28th. That'll bring the end of tonight's rather large field here from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We go 80 laps, just around 200 miles and a little over 320 kilometers. Again, this track has been featured in every single 4Wide Racing season since its inception, so it's definitely been one of those classic tracks that we always visit, no matter where it is on the schedule, either early in the regular season or deep in the playoffs. It doesn't matter. Eric Schaefer, that man you're looking at right now, is the man on the throne as of late. Won the last 2 races here at Indy. He's looking to make it a 3rd and get his 3rd win on the season. remain in the points lead. Francisco, your thoughts just before we get the green flag tonight? It looks like they're crashing.
Oh, there's a crash!
Back
there's
there,
a crash.
that's Brennan Gillis and Austin Reedy. I think Daniel Moore in the 77
Huge
might have got a
damage.
piece of it, but drama before we get lap 1 underway.
Well, this is unprecedented. Gotta look and see what happened here.
So here's the 34 of Reedy. He got rear end damage from all of this.
I think there was trouble further up.
Oh, they stacked up
yes.
severely. That's Christopher Bishop, and then Brandon Gillis goes sideways. I'm not sure at all what happened there, but the field will come out of turn 4. Lights are off on the iRacing official pace car. Everyone's trying to get themselves sorted. So is Daniel Moore in the back, but Ethan Fonseca Moreno and Eric Schaefer will bring them to the yard of bricks. We're racing from Indianapolis in a rather bizarre run to turn 1.
Eric Schaefer able to use momentum on the outside to get up to the lead, and now Lawson Peel's challenging for the second spot. You see Schaefer give him the draft to try and help his teammate get ahead of the driver of the 21. Ethan is going to give the spot to Lawson Peel, so the pole sitter moves down to the 3rd position. But a crossover move here off of turn 3 through the short chute into turn 4. They'll be side by side on their way to the front straightaway, but looks like Peel's going to pinch him down and keep the momentum on the front straightaway. He'll get the draft off Schaefer, who will lead exactly where he was a week ago.
And Moreno there backed up the entrance of turn 3, lost the position to Peel, and now here comes Brandon Hawken for the taking. He'll dive for the inside in turn 1, but you're right, Eric Schaefer already commanding this field early, and we're going to give you updates on exactly what happened with the drivers in the back and how they're faring at this moment. It looks like for Gillis and for Reedy, they're okay. For Daniel Moore, he has hit pit road. He is now 1 lap shy of the leader, so it looks like bring him as one of the early drivers and maybe out of this race or behind the 8 ball, as everybody remains in this draft pack. Top 5 a bit separated from everybody else, but so far all good for Eric Schaefer holding on to the top spot as they squabble behind him.
And you see most of the field is single file. It's just not really a 2-groove racetrack, at least early on in the run. You see this a lot in the Indianapolis 500. Cars will get single file here, and if you're going to make a move, you kind of have to give it to a driver, or if you're going to fight it, you lose a lot of time. Just the fastest way is going to be around the bottom, but it'll be interesting to see when we get in the long run, when the dirty air starts to play an effect and you have to search for grip. We'll see that second groove with a chance to come in. You saw Eric Schaefer take the lead away using that second groove. I think later on in this run, it's going to be an option to maybe make a pass.
And at this moment, everybody's staying down low, and that's one of the unique features of driving this Indianapolis Motor Speedway, is that it's rather narrow grooved if you really think about it. That bottom lane is really where you're going to be your fastest. You're not really going to experiment all that much with different lanes like we'll see at a bunch of other racetracks that come forward in the regular season and, of course, in the playoffs. You know, Iowa, you think of one of those tracks as one of those. Texas as well next week. But here at Indianapolis, you really want to get right down to the inside move of the racetrack. That's the fastest way around. It's all about throttle control and, of course, making sure you don't wear out that right front significantly. So far, battles not too frequent at this moment. Near the back, you'll see a lot of those guys going side by side. Ethan Fonseca Moreno, Francisco already looking at Lawson Peel. He's backing up his entries just to get a good run off the corner here to the short chute in 1 and 2. Has the nose inside. You're riding on board with him.
He's trying to see if he can match the exit. We see Peel running the higher lane, and Fonseca gets loose off the corner. Peel able to run the higher line, just gives him enough of momentum. He's going to have the draft off of his teammate, which allows him to hold off the 21. You saw Fonseca try and back up the entry, enter just that little bit higher, and try and straighten out the exit just that little bit more compared to the 12 car. You saw him get into the apron a little bit in turn 1, which allowed the 21 to make the move in turn 2. But right now, if you're Ethan Fonseca, you have to kind of settle in. It's still lap 4 of this race, so while he is trying to get that second place back, you don't want to lose a position in an attempt to gain one. You see him get a good run off of turn 4 there. He's going back to turn 1 side by side. He'll have the bottom, and Peel's not going to fight that one. He'll just tuck in line and maybe try the crossover. Doesn't look like he'll make an attempt for it, so looks like it'll just be a swap of those two for the time being.
So the 21 moves up to second. As the 3 car moves up to about a 0.3 of a second gap between himself and the 21 in second. Now here comes Brandon Hawken peeling out of the way, no pun intended, to get right under Peel here for third place. Entering turn 3, Kyle Benson not too far behind. He could make a move in enough time if he's got the momentum. But there's the 98 swapping inside of the 12 car. Got the position. He's into the podium. I was about to say for a minute, Francisco, that before that pass was complete for Brandon Hawken, your top 3 that you were looking at are the top 3 in the point standing. Schaefer, the control car of the playoff field so far. Lawson Peel, of course, dropping to second in point standings after last week's outing at IRP. And then Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who's looking to join the 3 and the 12 as those that are basically locked in. Even if they miss the next couple of races, all 3 of them so far the titans of this series as it goes. But it looks like the 98 car is starting to play spoiler in that a little bit. Here's the top 2 have pulled away for just a little bit. And also all single file through the top 10 and 15. Some drivers getting right up and close to the outside safer barrier. That's something that we'll see often in this race, just because as the tires wear through this very hot track temperature, these cars are going to want to slide up the banking and go right up into the wall. It's a similar fate that you'll have at a lot of other tracks, especially IRP that we saw last week. Indianapolis doesn't really give you any favors if you overstep on the race car.
I think it's incredibly remarkable, Kenneth, what we've seen out of our top 3 from the season, that being Ethan Fonseca, Eric Schaefer, and Lawson Peel. I mean, we haven't really seen a big 3 in this series. There's usually been either one dominant driver or a general spread between the rest of the drivers in the series. But if you look at every statistical category as far as wins, top 5s, top 10s, laps led, laps completed, even down to the incident points, those guys are the top 3 in all of those categories. So they truly have been the 3 best this season, and each one of them are trying to one-up each other every single week to establish themselves as a title favorite.
Every single week, you'll see one of those 3 drivers dominate a race. Eric Schaefer was the prime example from last week's race at IRP, where he led 199 of the 223 laps run. If that's not domination, then I don't know what is. But you can see in a bunch of other races, Ethan Fonseca Moreno is out there leading a bunch of laps. Lawson Peel is out there leading a bunch of laps. And, you know, we could argue, too, for the last 2 seasons, Francisco, that it's been Lawson Peel's league. He's been the dominant driver, winning 7 races and 14 races combined over the last 2 seasons. But it seems like this time in 2023 and now a bit of 2024, you know, it's not as easy as it was just a couple of seasons ago. You've got heavier competition. You've got a different race car in the Xfinity Series machine. It becomes more of an open field for the top 3 to spread their dominance around the schedule. And then you have, you know, the surprise winners sprinkled in as well. The guys like Adam Alshire, Craig Lauenslager. You look at Luke Canup, who became a force in this series, and as well Brandon Banks, who got the win at our first Talladega race earlier this season. So you're just having a wide open door for anyone to take control of the series. And these 3, you know, are easily the favorites for the championship as we move into playoff time.
And again, when we go into the playoffs, unlike seasons past, it's going to be a culmination of how consistent can you be throughout the entirety of the playoffs. You have to accumulate as many points through every single race. That way you have as big of a cushion when you get to Homestead to not have to have as great of a performance. You know, you want to give yourself that cushion just in case anything were to go wrong in that particular race. But at the end of the day, if you have a shot, if you're within an arm's reach of the championship, you have to be able to run good at Homestead. And seeing this oval refresh, Kenneth, and the way it's worked out, something tells me these guys are going to have to run against that outside wall over at that 1.5 mile in South Florida.
You know what? I mean, we're seeing a lot of challenges present themselves to the drivers in this series. And most notably this season, I'd say that this season has provided more challenges than any else in the past. I mean, we talked about the next-gen car when that got introduced at around season 4, how that might have changed the trajectory of everything and how drivers are going to acclimate to that. But you're bringing an Xfinity Series car, you completely change up the points format and reward consistency over just getting a win to punch your ticket in. And then, of course, you have the oval refresh that just came right in the middle of the regular season. So it really threw a lot of drivers for a loop, and it's still getting some guys out when it comes to fully adjusting to the environment and being able to thrive off of their strength. We're watching the 6th place car. This is Colin Forrester the Jacksonville, Florida native, driving the number 99. He's one of those guys that is 19th in the point standings. And Francisco, we noted that he was missing a couple of races over the last several weeks. He told us that in the booth when he finished in the top 3 a little while ago. And he is about, let's say, 50 or so points away from that top 14 spot. He is exactly 50 as we go into tonight's race at Indianapolis. He's one of those guys that, I mean, he's looking at the top 3 in the point standings and he's like, wow, I wish I was in your position. He's having to fight and claw for every last point he can get as the top 3 pulls away.
And if you remember, Kenneth, he had an opportunity to race for the win at the Kansas Speedway and ended up losing out to Lawson Field in that one. So that could have been a moment where the driver of the 99 could have potentially given himself a shot at the wild card. But so far, after starting where he did and moving up to the 6th position, he has at least given himself an opportunity to run up at the front. And if something happens, if he plays his strategy cards right, he could end up with a chance at the race win here today, which is probably what he's going to need. Just looking at the points, Kenneth, it's not that he can't get the points between now and Talladega, but you consider the amount of races left and how many points you need, and you might have to think race win instead of points.
And Forster is a prior winner here at this Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Got it in his first season, competing in the 4-wide racing TJC series in season 3. He's also the pole sitter last time we were here for the next gen cars in season 5. So, you know, Forrester definitely has a pretty stout resume when it comes to racing at the Brickyard, but right now currently in 6th place, trying to scavenge his way through the top 5. Hasn't been able to catch up yet to the 38 car of Kyle Benson. While that hasn't really happened in terms of the 99 catching the 38, the 21 is catching the 3 for the race lead. Him and Hawken have been slowly getting closer to the back bumper of that 3 car, and Moreno is building up a charge that Schaefer cannot ignore right now.
And I've heard from the driver of the 43 that he has not forgotten what happened at Kansas a couple of weeks ago, so he wants to try and get by this 3 car and put him in his rearview mirror. And down the front straightaway, it's a drag race back to turn 1.
Here comes Moreno, dive on the inside. We'll peep the lunge into turn 1 and see if Schaefer's going to give him the spot. It looks like Schaefer's going to fight in there into the corner, so Moreno going to have to hang on for his dear life on the inside. Schaefer's going to beat him out the corner.
Oh, and what a block there on Brandon Hawken. You saw the flames come out. Brandon Hawken had to lift out of that one. And you saw that Eric Schaefer is going to fight for this race lead. He knows the clean air and the track position is going to be very important, especially against a driver as fast as Ethan Fonseca. So he's going to try and battle for that race lead. So the 21 is going to have to tuck back in line and see if he can recoup and make an effort there. You see further back on the screen, Jaden Porter was making a move to the inside of Colin Forster for position. That's for, I believe, the 6th spot. Looks like Porter still side by side with Forster. Turn 4 right now on the screen is the 64 of Haley in that group of cars. And there you see Porter still to the inside of Colin Forster. They'll be side by side off of turn 4. Looks like Craig Lautenschlager is going to push the 28, the former champion, in that Miami Vice looking paint scheme there out of Jaden Porter this week, Kenneth.
I don't know if he did that to kind of gain our bias for this week, but regardless,
for me.
A beautiful paint scheme on the 28 has been rocking the KBRN colors for basically all season long, apart from the Allied colors that he sported a little earlier on in the campaign. But nice run for Jaden Porter so far, who came home with a pretty good finish as Lautenschlager and D'Elia behind this group just smacked the outside wall, but Lautenschlager's going to get a big run on Porter, exiting 2. I think all 3 of them had a brush with the outside safer barrier, so here comes Lautenschlager. Peek on the inside, and he's got it. That's for 7th place.
But Porter's going to stay right on his bumper. Just keep the pressure on and force a mistake out of the 13. You see him back up turn 4 a little bit. Doesn't want to enter right in that dirty air. And he's going to see if he can set him up for turn 1. But we'll see. It'll take a couple of laps. But I believe the 21 is going to try and mount a charge once again on your race leader soon enough here. He's still within a quarter of a second. Most of the field is starting to spread out. We're already 15 laps into this run, Kenneth. And if I had to guess, we're somewhere around the halfway point in the fuel run at this point in the race. Maybe less, or maybe more, I believe I meant to say, around the 60-70%-ish mark. So I believe pit stops are potential here in the next 10 to 15 laps or so.
Yeah, they should be looming rather soon as we watch this battle developing for 13th. This is Adam Alishire, outside car in the 91. Scott Healy, the orange Chevrolet, on the inside, heading for turn 3. Now, Healy, of course, looking to recover after a pretty horrific crash at the IRP racetrack, entering turn 3 Looks like Alshire just got a big
Wow.
slap to the outside wall. So here comes Tyler Murray, Lance Hill, Ryan Pandiccio, and those 3 Toyotas are all teammates at Skybox Racing, so all looking to stay with each other at this point in time. Actually, Hill, part of Stonks Motorsports, but 2 of them part of the Skybox Racing team, and Murray sprinkled right in the middle of this group.
And he doesn't want any part of it. He wants to make sure he keeps his car clean. He's in that points battle, tied in the cut line, or just 9 points above the cut line as he almost makes contact with Lance Hill, and Pandiccio gets the wall behind him. He almost makes contact. He does make contact with Lance Hill right there, and Hill is sliding in front of him. This is the kind of racing you get back in the middle of the field, Kenneth. Everybody's being aggressive.
We're seeing a lot of cars kick out their rear ends, specifically out of turn 2. We saw that a couple of laps ago. It's been the same here. For this battle inside the top 15, it is getting really fun, and this has allowed the 64 of Scott Healy to pull away. And here comes Lance Hill, looking on the inside of the 91. Both of these former teammates last season with the next-gen cars. Hill on the inside this time through. He'll have help from Ryan Pandiccio in the draft. We're 2 by 2 off of turn 4.
And Hill gets the spot on Murray, and you can see that's the 91 of Alshire who's swerving around, probably trying to get some tire temperature in that race car. He's going to keep ahead of these 4. Some great racing. This is up inside the top 15. As there's a look at your second place driver staring down the leader of the race, trying to see if he can get some sort of run. But with pit stops looming, Kenneth, what are the kind of strategies they're looking to play? Since I don't know the exact number of laps they can go on fuel, I can only assume it's going to be a 3 to 4 stop, depending on how they're able to cut it. Because you think about the lap count, we have 80 laps here. If you're able to do 27? 27, just to be sure, you could go on 3 pit stops. Though if you want to go 20 laps on each run, you do actually I meant 2 stops, not 3. But if you want to do if you do 20 laps on each, then you can do the 3 stops. As actually, speaking of, Tyler Murray peeled off to go into the pit lane. He's going to be the first driver to actually make a pit stop in this race, scheduled wise. After the lap 1 incident, there you see Murray on the pit lane. And it's actually a generally speaking easy pit lane entry, Kenneth. It's straight, but you still go from a very high speed down to 55 miles an hour.
And we saw a lot of drivers, Francisco, practice that a little earlier on tonight in the session as Alshire and Pandiccio and a bunch of other drivers behind. That was Trevor Haley and Wyatt Brackett. They are all encountering the outside wall coming out of turn 2. They're not having a lot of fun, and those right sides of the cars are pretty beat up as it stands. But yeah, you're right. You are going from a pretty high speed to a low speed, and you've got to hop on the binders as soon as you exit out of turn 4. And as we've talked about, the way this track is mostly single grooved in nature, if you've got traffic around you, it's going to be infinitely harder to come out of the corner, peel out to the left, and make sure that you hop on the brakes in enough time to not overstep the car, to get yourself into the inside wall of the pit barrels. And then, of course, you don't want to be speeding when you come down pit road either. So it's a really difficult combo and an equation that it's really hard to figure out when you're in the middle of the moment, but you really just got to...
Oh, Ethan's got to run.
Schaefer is loose out of turn 2, and here comes the 21 looking for the lead.
He got loose off the corner. We saw Moreno was trying to diamond the exit. They'll be side by side back to turn 3 with Schaefer on the bottom this time. Schaefer's going to drive it hard into turn 3. He's going to slide up the racetrack. The 21's going to get him the space. But that's going to be the race lead for the driver of the 21. The 3's not giving up. But we've seen the top side in this situation prevail, and it's going to prevail for Ethan Fonseca out of turn 4. New race leader for the first time here today.
Ethan Fonseca Moreno powering his way to the top spot here at lap number 20 as we're a quarter of the way through this race tonight at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And the product of how that pass was made, Francisco, was something that we talked about before we hit the air. The new oval refresh, how that has changed a lot of the tracks, specifically the 1.5 miles across the surface. Well, it also goes the same for these 2.5 mile big super speedways and larger tracks. When you think of Michigan Auto Club and then this 2.5 miler at Indianapolis. And what I mentioned, at least what I've seen, is that the inside line is always the best, but it slickens up over a long run. Schaefer encountered the slick stuff down there. His car stepped out. He lost the race lead. Now he might lose second. Brandon Hawkin, though, getting loose on the inside.
And that's the other part we mentioned when talking about that, is that the outside, or at least that second lane, has enough grip in it to be able to hold off, make a pass, or hold on to a position. And if you're able to get on that outside, you might stand a chance of gaining a spot or holding on to it. And Schaefer, when he was on the outside there with Brandon Hawkin, was able to hold on safe and sound there. nobody else, I believe, has made their way on the pit road so far, apart from Tyler Murray. Obviously not taking into account Austin Reed. And there's actually Colin Forster taking it to the pit lane here on lap 21. He won't be able to do the race on 2 stops with this pit stop here on lap 21, Kenneth. But certainly a potential 3-stop effort by the driver of the 99. This is definitely similar to what we saw at the Pocono Raceway, Kenneth. The last race that we had go flag to flag with the green flag. And the exact same strategy is looking like it's going to plan out.
So Murray and Forster are the only ones to hit pit road. As watch this out of turn 2. Schaefer hitting the wall. Brandon Hawken way sideways out the corner. Had to dive underneath the 3-car. Made that pass. And it's getting really tough to drive for even the top leaders out here as they have separated from everyone else.
And how much of that was Schaefer trying to use his equipment to stay in front of the 21, Kenneth? That was not something that we exactly thought of, as you see Alan Shire makes his way on a pit road now. But how much was Eric Schaefer using his race car to keep the race lead?
Looks like he's been using it pretty significantly. Those tires are screaming for grip, and it doesn't help that we've got a really hot track temperature today from Indianapolis Motor Speedway at 124. Come race time, 82 degrees in the air, and wind's pretty strong at almost 12 miles an hour to the southwest direction. So you're looking at pretty interesting conditions that definitely punish the race car aerodynamically and physically when you're looking at the tires and the shoes of these race cars. And Schaefer has dramatically dropped off of the race leaders as Ethan Fonseca Moreno will hold on to the top spot. He comes out at turn 4, still holding on to the lead. No real considerations of coming down pit road yet, and I'd imagine, Francisco, that it's going to pan out to be the tire strategy and fuel strategy as well that you're trying to talk about. At least try to split it maybe about once every half of the race. So you're looking at only about 2 stops between, lap 20, obviously, or maybe 3 stops, lap 20, lap 40, and lap 80, all the way to the end, even if you don't pit by then. It's just a very interesting strategy as here's Lounslogger diving to the inside of Benson. What a run by the 13. He slips into the top 5.
You mentioned the winds out of the southwest earlier, Kenneth, and just thinking about how the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is laid out, that explains why the drivers are getting loose off of turn 2. The wind is kind of a crosswind coming from the turn 1 side of the racetrack and further out from that direction. So it's kind of pushing cars towards the wall. Guys are having to put more wheel into it and trying to stay off the wall. That's why they're slipping and sliding, and that's why you see a couple of guys get tight into turn 3. So the wind with that much speed and an occasional gust, huge reason why guys are having these balance issues. Even this late into the run, obviously the tires matter a lot. That wind plays a huge role in that deciding factor. You see another car further back make its way onto pit road. Most of the field has not yet come down pit road, Kenneth, which tells me they're all trying to bide for that strategy call of getting to lap 26/27. That's certainly the range you want to get yourself in, but we'll see exactly how it pans out. And Ethan Fonseca, the last couple laps, Kenneth, has just been running a lot faster than the rest of the field, except for that 98. Both of them, for the matter, have pulled away significantly from Eric Schaefer, and let alone Lawson Peel and everybody else. They have about 5 seconds on anybody outside of these two.
Well, the last clock to lap, the 3 car was almost about 2 seconds slower than your top 2. He ran a 58.1. Your leaders ran laps in the 56.6s. So it is a huge difference between the top 2 and your pole sitter, or your second place starter tonight, and 2-time winner this season, Eric Schaefer. He has dramatically fallen off the pace, and there are more drivers that have hit the pit lane this time by. Make that a 3-car trio. Ryan Pandicio, Lance Hill, Scott Healy making their way in. And AJ Green looks like is ahead as well.
All of these guys will still have to pit twice, Kenneth. They can't make the whole race on just one more pit stop. You see one car further back was also considering coming down pit road. Wasn't quite sure if that was Healy or Gillis. But there you see Ethan Fonseca, and it's going to matter when he comes down to pit road, Kenneth, because he is up in the front commanding this race. Just a 3/4 of a second lead over Brandon Hawken. But with these two being this far out, can they afford the extra pit stop? And out of turn 4, it's going to be both of them making their way into the pit lane. You see Brandon Hawken hard on the brakes, trying to close up to the 21 with the rear end stepping out. Schaefer's going to stay out for another lap, so does Lawson Peel. Here comes Jaden Porter, who gets right up to the back of Craig Lautenslager. These guys now making their pit stop on lap 25, Kenneth. I still think they're going to be short.
So here comes the main group of leaders. So Eric Schaefer, surprisingly enough, was the slowest out of the top 3 those last several laps. He is going to stay out an extra lap here. About
Maybe
a second ahead of his teammate, Lawson Peel. Kyle Benson falling back to third. Of course, everybody's shuffling in this top 5 just based on who's coming in and who is not. We'll monitor the run out of pit road for both Moreno and for Hawken. Looks like Jaden Porter severely overshot his pit box, had to completely reset. There's Moreno. Jack is dropped. He's out of pit road, and Hawken is spending a lot of time in. And he reaches 14 seconds. He's finally in. I think he did take a long time to get to his stall.
I think he overshot it as well, Kenneth. A lot of mistakes here on pit road.
Part of that coming down to the slickness of these tires. It's not easy to put this car to a stop. As there's the 21 and the 98, and you'll see this 98 slide a little too back, or too forward rather, then has to reverse. Jaden Porter, you see him in the background. He'll completely miss his stall. Too far to the right and a bit overshot. Had to completely reverse. He's going to lose a lot of time on that end. So Moreno should have an even larger gap to the race leaders as he cycles through. Eric Schaefer, Lawson Peel, they come in with Kyle Benson.
And they almost had contact going into their pit stall, did Peel and Schaefer, but they're able to sort that out between themselves. And now on this is lap 26-27, Kenneth, so every driver that is pitted at this lap, I would say, has a shot at making that one stop work. They have to save fuel, which is probably what Schaefer did, which is why he lost so much time. But he's presented himself an opportunity, if this goes green, to eliminate an entire pit stop from his race. The only question is, with the pace that Ethan Fonseca has, if he is able to lay down the hammer and put in these fast laps and take advantage of the gaps that he had, can he make up that delta? It's not going to be easy because of the amount of laps he has, and it's not that many that he has to begin with, but certainly at least it presents that strategy option. We saw it pan out at Pocono, a couple guys trying the 2-stop versus the 3-stop, and it certainly made for an interesting idea as far as which one would work out. Here's Colin Forrester, who was one of the first drivers to pit overall. He's going to end up in the race lead. There you see Ethan Fonseca about 2 seconds behind him. He's going to eventually get around the 99 with the fresher tires, about an 8-lap difference there. But Colin Forster's jumped relative to where he was running, and he's, of course, trying the 3-stop here. There's no way he can do 2 stops, but he's basically saying, I'm going to run the 3-stop and maximize my tire life in those 3 stints, or in those 4 stints.
So we've got 3 parts all on full display, and all of these guys, looking for different off-sequence strategies. But, I mean, here at a track so big like Indianapolis, and you could argue the same for Pocono, is that you can employ these different strategies, 1, 2, or 3 stops, and in some cases, it could work either way, just because of distance, just because of tire discrepancies, and how the field separates, thins out as the run progresses. You can run more stops than others, and you could still find yourself in a position to win and be competitive. Now, of course, for Forster and Moreno, we'll see how this pans out over the length of this race as we go past halfway. And here we'll see the easy route go down for Moreno. He'll look to the inside and should take over the race lead from Colin Forster, at least at a turn 2, if he can make this pass complete. Then everybody else is just going to have to deal with what they've got. But what I've noticed here, Francisco, is that there's no draft for Ethan Fonseca Moreno. He's going to pass Colin Forster here for the lead. He's already got it, but he has no one else around him. It's another 5.3 seconds until you get to the next driver in line, Brandon Hawken in the 98, because he overshot his pit box. He wasted a lot of time down the lane. You've got AJ Green and Kevin D'Elia sort of in the midst of that with Alashire as well. And then you have Eric Schaefer and Lawson Peel came in and out together. They've got all the draft in the world they could ask for, plus teamwork, and plus the ability to save with having a driver on your back saying, hey, I got you.
Well, Eric Schaefer is 11 seconds off the race lead, so he's got the opportunity, like I said, to be able to eliminate a pit stop, which around here I believe is about 40 seconds or so. So Ethan Fonseca is looking to try and see if he can eventually build a 40-second gap. Now, there's going to be a time where he might come down pit road earlier, because at the rate that we're going naturally, I don't believe he'll make the pit stop inside of 5 laps to go. So just if it were me running this race right now with this strategy, I would consider coming down pit road potentially around the lap 50 mark, and maybe once again on lap 65, just to give myself an opportunity in case a caution comes out to be on fresher tires, but also not be on old tires unnecessarily if you're already on this 3-stop strategy. Maximize fresh tires, be on fresher tires for a longer period of time so you can make faster lap times to have to make up for the deficit of making an extra pit stop.
And you're flirting with disaster too if you're looking at only a 1-stop strategy, because you could get really close to the end of a fuel window and you can find yourself running out of fuel either in the middle of the run or at the very end when you need track position the most. We look on board with Ethan Fonseca Moreno, and I want to look at this camera perspective for a bit, Francisco, just because of how you drive this Indianapolis Motor Speedway as opposed to the other tracks on the schedule. It is so built differently than other tracks we see. It's a big old rectangle, and it's usually narrow groove. You see them on this long back straightaway heading over to turn 3, this second short chute. This is 9.2 degrees of banking. You're getting right up and near that white line on the inside of the racetrack, and even a bit of that white rumble strip on the very bottom. You could flirt with that just a little bit to give you more grip. But Moreno is arcing these corners out just to get the most straight exit possible and put in as much throttle. And obviously on fresh tires it looks easy. On old tires we saw the different story, but it is rather unique on how you have to drive this, even just by yourself, barring any draft around you.
And I was going to say just that. He's definitely not really lifting in the corners, and when he's getting on the throttle, he's being 100% certain about it. So not only does he feel very comfortable in that race car, but he's being very decisive. He knows what he wants to do, and he is straightening these straightaways out, which, considering how long they are, it could be worth up to 0.2 of a second per straightaway. So that's a lot of time if you're able to be decisive with the throttle and know what you want to do. You saw the 98 of Brandon Hawkins closing up the back of Colin Forster to take the actual P2 position away. And now here's Lawson Peel, who's looking to get past the 91 of Adam Allenshire, another driver who stopped early in the run. All of this is about 12.5 seconds off the lead, so they've lost time already on this run to the driver of the 21. So for at least for Ethan Fonseca right now, it's looking good. But again, it's going to come down to how much fuel can these drivers be able to save, because as far as the leaders on this alternative strategy of trying 2 stops, it's the 12 and the 3.
And they're having to weave through a lot of traffic. They've got more up the way. Tyler Murray in the 36 is there. He's one of the lapped down cars in this field in 24th, but then he's got actual lead lap competition ahead. You know, you look at the pair of Skybox Racing Machines. Sunbury, Ohio is Adam Allenshire, then Kevin D'Elia ahead in the 53. And then you look at the pair of Stocks Motorsports cars. North Carolina's AJ Green and Jacksonville's Colin Forster. They are all in a large group together. So it's getting really interesting on how the 12 and the 3 have to navigate all the cars around. We'll look on board here with Schaefer as he falls back to 8th. Hear that.
Saving.
Radio silence. He is clutching and coasting in the corner.
But we assumed that, considering how far he was able to go that first run, he went to lap 27, and that he was going to try and employ this strategy. It was something I assumed when he fell back that quickly. I quickly thought to myself, he might be saving to try this strategy, and clearly that's the case. But with the amount of traffic around him, he might not need to go full throttle, especially on this end of the straightaway. He'll just clutch it right now. There you go. He's going to pull in the clutch, use a little bit of the brake to get the car slowed down, but now he's going to get out of the clutch and put some throttle in. But he's only doing that at the end of the big straightaways. He's not doing it in the slower corners.
And also that's in an effort, Francisco, to slow the car down and not have to use a lot of the brakes. So we see that a lot at other tracks where drivers who go full hard save mode, they will clutch and coast way before the actual entrance of the corner, where usually if you're running 100% you would brake. But since you're clutching and coasting, you're naturally just using the engine to slow the car down. And maybe if you have to use a little brake, then sure. But in best case scenario, you don't even touch that brake pedal at all. So it looks like Tyler Murray just had a piece of the outside wall there in the short chute coming out of turn 3. And a nice battle that's building up inside the top 10. How about the Skybox Racing teammates going at it with each other? Rookie sensation Ryan Pandiccio moving to the inside of Allenshire. This is for 8th.
Pandicio's having a good run after starting a little bit further back than he might have wanted to. He's up there in position with the likes of Eric Schaefer, with Lawson Peel. So a good job of the driver of the 63 Toyota Supra there. And not too far behind is Jaden Porter, who messed up on his pit stop. Was on a similar sequence as your race leader, but obviously lost physical ground to him. And now is in the mix of the drivers who are trying to make one less pit stop than him.
So here's Porter gaining ground on the 91. The 64 of Scott Healy not too far behind either. These drivers that are basically on the same strategies or so, about a lap or two margin of error, as Adam Allenshire goes almost head on into the outside barrier, exiting turn 3. Here's a look on the inside for Healy and Trevor Haley. Going down low, Adam Allenshire has beat up that right front over the course of this race, and look at how destroyed it is on that right side of the race car. It has not been easy for him. And that last time by, it added a bit more damage to his race car.
There's been a lot of guys getting into the wall in the middle of the pack here. A lot of aggressive racing. You see how close that is right there between those two. See Kyle Benson just a little bit further back. I feel Benson might have had a slow pit stop because he certainly lost time. Peel and Schaefer, which speaking of Peel and Schaefer, they're now 15 or so seconds off of the race leader. So they're continuing to save and continuing to lose time. And if Ethan plays his cards right as far as when he pits to maximize those fresh tires, Kenneth, at least at the moment, it's not looking like that strategy might not work of pitting an entire extra time and still beating out Schaefer and Peel. At least right now it looks that way.
Yeah, all about putting up the maximum distance between yourself and the competition. And so far, to the tune of about 14.5 seconds, like you said. I mean, it's a pretty large distance, and even if you come down pit road, by the time you get the fresher tires and everybody else pits, you're going to go right around them in enough time. Fonseca Moreno currently up 6.2 seconds ahead of Brandon Hawken in second place. Colin Forster still holding on to that third spot. His teammate AJ Green just a couple of seconds behind in fourth. And then about 6/10 behind the 48 car is the 53 of Kevin D'Elia. So we might have a nice battle for fourth on our hands at this point in time as we approach halfway here from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll take a short break and we'll be back in just a moment. Ethan Fonseca Moreno leading lap 37 here from the Brickyard.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
The best, you got them four abreast, often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws! Dirt Racing will be available September 27th. Pre-order your copy today.
Welcome back to Indianapolis. Coverage of the 4 Wide Racing TJ's Team Series is brought to you by iRacing. Get your sim racing career started today at iRacing.com. By TJ's Team. To learn more about the Foundation's mission to end pediatric cancer, go to wheremorethanacave.org. And by Paul's Setup Shop. Well, what a strategy race this is unfolding to be from the Brickyard. We welcome you back to our coverage of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This is your race leader, Ethan Fonseca Moreno, to the tune of about 6.6 seconds in front of Brandon Hawken for Skybox Racing. There's the 98 of Colin Forrester, who just came out of pit road, so the fuel window and the pit stop window for sure has opened at this juncture of the race. Kenneth Bueno, Francisco Bacallao with you. And Francisco, we've been analyzing the 1, 2, and 3 stop strategies that are all to play here tonight from Indianapolis. Colin Forrester, the most recent to come down pit road. He will unlap himself here out of 4. What are you making of the strategy call by everyone in the field, the distance, and how things should play out as we move forward?
Well, I like Forrester's strategy in the sense that he's giving himself the track position early on after most of the field pits as a way to protect himself against the caution. So right now he's unlapped himself. If a yellow comes out, everybody comes down pit road and he'll stay out. But at the same time, if it cycles out, he'll get the track position and won't have that many laps on his tires, or he can come down pit road and try something there. So I like that call for that reason. Ethan Fonseca is trying to put as much of a gap, and here's an interesting call. We saw Brandon Hawken come down with the 21 the last time, and he'll pit a lot earlier this time around in an effort to try and match those behind him. So he'll come down pit road actually one other time in this race. I guess he's bailing from the exact strategy he was trying to match the 21 in, Kenneth, and right now he's coming down pit road. He came in sooner on that first stop than he did now this time. So there you see now Peel passing AJ Green. That's for position. Green is on a different strategy than the 12. But this is the 12 car of Lawson Peel, who's about 16 or so seconds off your race leader. He's trying to save fuel and make it on one less pit stop than Ethan Fonseca Moreno, as there is the 21 on pit road. And this is kind of what I was alluding to before the break, Kenneth, saying maybe you don't want to run the rest of the fuel runs all the way to the end just because you want to be on fresher tires for a longer period of time. You don't really want to be out there on extremely old tires if you don't have to be, knowing you're going to stop twice.
Yeah, it's the thing you have to really think about in your head is here comes 3 cars, the 21, the 48, and the 64 on the forefront of your screen. Make that a 4th car with the 89 of CJ Munier. And we talk about adjustment, and what an adjustment that was for the 98 of Brandon Hawken. Just understanding the situation and coming down a little earlier than anticipated, and obviously having a much cleaner run to pit lane this time through, so no lost time for Hawken, the driver out of Skybox Racing. In that camp, as Lawson Peel will take over the race lead here out of turn 4. Kevin D'Elia, Eric Schaefer, those 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Now for Schaefer, he has been saving over this run. Obviously, it's going to be a little harder now that he doesn't have the exact draft in front of him. Still ways to go before he can catch up to D'Elia. And it appears here entering turn 1, he is not hitting the clutch pedal. So could this be, Francisco, Schaefer's knowledge at this point, knowing that he can extend his run past a certain distance and maybe having the fresher tires as we go past halfway?
Oh, he's going to get in the wall there. Oh, he didn't. He lifted, but he certainly was going to end up in the outside wall if he didn't. But he obviously has the math done in his race car. He's able to see exactly how much fuel he has left before he has to come down pit road. If he's made it to that number where he's trying to get to the end of the race on that pit stop, then that's why he wouldn't be saving anymore, because I can't imagine him not saving and changing strategies at this point. I think at this point in the race, if you're committed to the 2-stop strategy and trying to save fuel, you've done so. You've already essentially lost 15 seconds to Ethan Fonseca trying to do this. You're already baked in. That's exactly what you have to try. You can't bail now and try something different. It's too late for that unless a caution comes out.
And here's Moreno currently running in 13th place. Brandon Hawken, who came in just a couple of laps ago, he is settled back in 16th. And this point, gaining positions. You see the big gap there, that bright yellow Toyota Supra in the background. That's Hawken there running for position. And for Moreno, he is a 20.6 second gap away from the race leader in Lawson Peel. Now, of course, Peel is going to lose all that time as he comes down the lane, but could question if Peel and Schaefer's strategy to stay out this long is going to work in their favor. If they have enough of a gap to where they can put themselves on level playing field with Moreno, maybe have some fresher tires along the way and could beat him across the stripe as we get forward into the second half of this race. Could be rather interesting as there's Ryan Pandiccio. Driver moved up to 4th. And here comes the Massachusetts native into pit road with Trevor Haley behind him.
Well, Ethan's trying to close in as much of a gap as he can. He's certainly running over a second a lap quicker. And considering when they were able to come down pit road their previous time, if they're able to repeat that on this run, I would assume Lawson Peel can do another 9 laps or so, which tells me that Ethan should be at or around 10 seconds off of the 12 car when the 12 decides to bring it down the pit lane. And then Peel in the subsequent run will be able to make up a little bit more time as there's Schaefer saving fuel once again. Schaefer will be able to make some of that back up in the next run, but we already know that the 21's going to pit before his fuel runs out. So at that point, he'll start to make the gap back up at a probably similar enough rate. So it really is going to come down to the wire on those two strategies if we stay green.
Now, mind you, top 3 last time we were here at Indianapolis, it was Eric Schaefer winning the race, Lawson Peel, his teammate behind him, and then Colin Forster, who came home in 3rd. So far, Peel and Schaefer are the 2 drivers pioneering the long-term strategy to stay out as much as they can before coming in. Colin Forster employing the short-term strategy of coming in earlier than everyone else. Forster currently in 15th right now, and Peel and Schaefer currently running 1st and 3rd. We'll look back to 7th place. This is where Moreno has cycled out. He is waiting for everyone else ahead to come in. He's licking his chops, just praying that in the next several laps, these guys are going to enter the pit lane, and Moreno should have cleared away the best advantage over everyone else, especially Brendan Hawken, after that pit stop that he had the first run through the pit cycle.
Ethan's actually gaining a lot more than a second a lap compared to what I was saying. He's actually doing more so 2 seconds a lap on your race leader, so he might get very close as Brandon Banks gets into the wall off of turn 3. I think the 21 is going to end up somewhere around 5 or so, maybe less, seconds off of the 12 car when Peel decides to hit the pit lane, which is all the more going to help his strategy. That basically means he has built up that pit stop gap. We know that Peel's going to make up some of that ground when he ends up back on pit road, but then it'll swap around again, which will put about Ethan, I would say, somewhere within 15 seconds and better tires for the final, let's say, 20 laps of this race. Seems maybe 15 or so. I think that's doable.
Yeah, it's going to get really close, though, because the fuel window,
yes,
the pit window, it is going to be right on the edge. And if you don't consider a caution in this race, it is going to get even more dramatic because there's going to be guys running out of fuel coming to the stripe, and we're going to have that whole conversation of who's going to outlast the other just on fuel alone instead of talking about who can just beat the other by raw pace on the racetrack. We're looking at the current driver on your screen, 14th place, Michael Newbraw for Drinkin' Bros Racing. Why we're talking about him is because, we've been talking about the drivers up at the front, Moreno, Schaefer, and Peel, the top 3 titans in our series at the very top of the point standings going into tonight's race. But how about Newbraw, who's 10 spots behind the 14th place driver in the point standings? Newbraw has been quietly consistent over the season. He was the biggest mover at IRP last week from 24th to 8th. It was a plus 16 from the drop of the green then to the checkered flag, and Newbraw is fighting for his playoff life in the last waning races of this regular season as he'll get passed by AJ Green here for 13th, or this will be 12th rather, on the racetrack. But for Newbraw, he's got a pretty decent fight on his hands. Patrick Thompson, a driver he's going against, who currently is ahead of him in 7th place. There's just a lot on the line other than the top 3 fighting for the fuel race victory here tonight from Indianapolis. We've got the playoffs in line as well, and this is going to matter in the ripple effect until Talladega.
And like I said, there's just so many big names that haven't yet got that spot in the playoffs. So as you see, the big move there by Fonseca to get by 2 drivers in turn 1, one being his teammate and the other being Kyle Benson. But a huge opportunity for big names to maybe miss the playoffs, which will give a shot to some of these other drivers for having been rewarded for their consistency. There's Patrick Thompson, who came close on 2 strategy occasions at the Michigan and at the Darlington Raceway from coming home with wins. So strategy's not exactly an enemy to him. At least in this particular race, it hasn't exactly thrown him out to the front, but he is in 7th right now, so he's doing something right to end up with a potential top 10 finish.
And for Thompson, he's on the same strategy ploy as the likes of Peel and Schaefer, so it's also cool to think about what Thompson is doing with the main titans of this strategy call at this point in time. And even to walk away with a top 10 would mean a lot for this rookie driver, who's just one of many rookie talents in this series that have already put their foot down on everybody else and have considered themselves either favorites for the championship or drivers who are almost about guaranteed for the playoffs. You think about guys like Trevor Haley, Ryan Pandicio, of course, the likes of Luke Knupp and Ethan Fonseca Moreno, all the rookie drivers that have been able to strut their stuff this season. Patrick Thompson is one of them. Although we didn't really consider him at the drop of the green flag at Auto Club Speedway, Thompson has proved his worth. But back to the top spot, Lawson Peel currently holding on to about a 4.5-second advantage over his teammate Eric Schaefer. Will cross the line with about 27 laps to go. Now, this is going to be the marquee lap, Francisco, because these guys are crossing the line for lap 26 on their stints, which means it's going to be the final stop. And it's all going to be about how it pays off, as Moreno is 8 seconds and gaining behind the leaders.
This is the lap. I think if Peel does end up hitting this lap, Kenneth, it's given himself that opportunity. He's gone far enough on each run. When he comes down pit road this lap, I believe he'll go in the lane this time, and I think Schaefer will follow him. They've given themselves the chance. They have the opportunity. They'll make the final pit stop, and there's Ethan Fonseca within. He'll have a sight set on the 3 car. And he's having made an extra pit stop. So, wow, it's going to be interesting here because we know they're going to pit at different times. I don't think Fonseca is going to follow them through. He knows that he can give himself a gap, and Peel's actually going to stay up for another lap, Kenneth, which is all the more going to solidify that. But at the same time, that's going to give Ethan Fonseca time to make up because he has the better tires. So it gives Ethan another lap to maybe cut in another second off of that lead, which could help in his overall strategy.
Well, hear this in-car from Lawson Peel. I don't know if you heard it in turn 1, but he is clutching and coasting way before the braking marker, especially in the first corner. We'll see if it's the same in turn 3. But Peel and Schaefer, we know the kind of strategy they're on.
Yeah,
look how far he is away from the entrance of that corner, and Peel is clutching. That's how much he's having to say.
Well, you're on the throttle here a lot more than you are at Pocono. And we saw how close it was at Pocono, so it doesn't surprise me to see this being done here, as Jaden Porter did make his way onto the pit lane as well. There's Eric Schaefer, who's not too far behind his teammate, and Ethan Fonseca, like I said, all the while is gaining. There's Schaefer going into the pit lane. Peel made his way into the pit lane. There's the 21. Oh my God, Kenneth. I think if Fonseca is able to come down pit road in 5 to 10 laps time, he's got a chance.
And this could be the pivotal mark of this race. There's Benson in, Patrick Thompson in, Brandon Gillis behind him. We should expect more drivers to come in on this very long green flag strategy. That leaves Moreno and Brandon Hawken to fend for themselves out of the racetrack. It's about 5.8 seconds separating the two. There's a caution out of the racetrack. And it is Brandon Banks that appears slow out of turn 4.
And that was while Peel and Schaefer were on the pit lane. This will give them the track position. Everybody that pitted, Kenneth, is going to end up being able to stay out with those fresher tires. That is not what the driver of the 40 or the 21 wanted to see there, because he's going to lose all this track position when he comes down pit road. Let's see what happened to Banks here, and I believe he was trying to come down pit road. We see him get on the brakes, and the car's just going to step out, get back on the racetrack. He tries to save it, but he hits the inside wall. That brings out the yellow flag.
He brings it to a stop and reverses into the racing line, so that makes it really dangerous. iRacing has no choice at this point but to call the caution. It's Brandon Banks trying to enter pit road, and boy, he was struggling with his race car before this, Francisco. We had seen him hit the outside wall time after time. Look how much damage is on the left and right front of his Chevrolet Camaro. He has not faced the peaceful afternoon in sim and peaceful night. And Brandon Banks bringing out the yellow, so that will change up the strategy completely. Now, this will eliminate any concern about making it on fuel to the end of this race. But this is a huge green flag if you're the likes of Eric Schaefer and Lawson Peel, because not only are you on the lead lap, but you are expecting everyone ahead almost to come in for service.
That's true. Lawson Peel down in the 14th spot. Essentially, every other driver that is not the drivers that came in on that lap are going to come down pit road to be able to make it on fuel, especially Colin Forster. I would say this worked out better for Colin Forster than it would for Ethan Fonseca, just considering the timing of all this, because Forster might have brought it into the pit lane soon enough here. So we'll see what happens for Forster and his strategy. But you're going to see the 21 and 98 and just about everybody else bring it down the pit lane. And you look to see, there's the 6 staying out. I believe he was a lap down. But as the cars continue to go around the racetrack, you're going to see that 12 car eventually not get into the pit lane, and that 3 car is going to follow the 12 out onto the main part of the racetrack. So there's the overhead shot as most of the lead lap cars work their way onto the pit lane. And most notably, you don't see the 12 car in the pit lane as they're going around everybody else on the racetrack. There you see them there. That's Lawson Peel, Eric Schaefer, even Kyle Benson, who was on pit road with them, is going to stay out. So Fonseca doesn't lose that much in terms of track position, Kenneth. But boy, you didn't want to have to, at least if you're the 21, the way you were thinking about racing for the win here today, you didn't think it was going to be like this. You thought, okay, it's going to be strategy, and I'll have the faster car with an opportunity to attack.
And just how quickly things change over 1 lap and 1 caution. It was a almost flag-to-flag affair. I was about to start looking into the history books to see when our last flag-to-flag race was, and I believe it was this season. But it looks like that won't be the case, as a caution comes out with Brandon Banks bringing it through. And it looks like Jaden Porter is actually going to take away the lead here. Lawson Peel and Eric Schaefer, of course, they're going to be 2nd and 3rd, along with Kyle Benson and Patrick Thompson, those who pitted around the caution flag. But Jaden Porter in the 28, a man we have not seen up front all race long, now with a chance to bring them under this restart.
Well, Jaden Porter came down pit road, I want to say it was a lap or 2 sooner than Lawson Peel, so he does have less fuel than those around him, but the caution flag should help him save that fuel. I don't know how much it'll present itself in terms of how close he'll be to be able to make it, but he gave himself a shot at the, I mean, you think about the season Jaden Porter's had, Kenneth, he has not gone to victory lane yet in his championship defense. He's only had 2 top 5 finishes, that coming at Michigan and just last week, so it has not been the season he's maybe expected out of himself after becoming champion, but he's certainly trying to still be aggressive and maybe play the dice right to get himself into a position where he can fight for a race win. So he hasn't been slow today. He certainly has shown some speed in that 28 Chevrolet. So maybe given the track position, Kenneth, it could give him an opportunity. We'll see his teammate line up in the 6th spot on the outside lane. So we'll see what the 21 can do to get back up towards the front. This is going to be an interesting restart, Kenneth, because you have Jaden Porter with about 2 laps less fuel than those guys immediately around him. And then from Ethan Fonseca on back, it's truly fresh tires from the pit stop, not the caution flag that when it originally came out. And everybody's basically got enough fuel to make it to the end, except the 28. We don't know what his situation is.
Well, what a moment this would be for Jaden Porter if he is able to stay ahead and get his first win of the season. And talking about clicking at the right time, we had mentioned his struggles early in the season to get accustomed to this Xfinity Series car and, deal with the pressure of his championship defense. But at this point in the season, 5 of his last 6 races, he has finished inside the top 10. And even then, at Kansas, he only finished 1 spot shy of a top 10 finish to make it a streak. So for Jaden Porter, he has certainly been consistent at this right moment in time. And if it can culminate in a race victory tonight from Indianapolis, that would be huge into Porter's confidence level and his favoritism for the championship as we go back into playoff mode. Here's your top 10 at this restart at lap 59 of 80. It's Jaden Porter at command, Lawson Peel, Kyle Benson, Eric Schaefer, Ethan Fonseca Moreno, your top 10, or actually top 5 rather, with Thompson, then Moreno, Hawken, Forrester, AJ Green, and Scott Healy. So here it is, restart with 22 laps to go from the Brickyard. Pace car makes that left to pit road. This restart all in Jaden Porter's hands. He'll hop on the gas pedal, put it through the gears. We're back underway.
And Peel's going to get cleared for second, and he immediately moves down in front to cover his teammate. That'll give Benson an opportunity to try something around the outside to get in front of that 3 car. He'll do so off of turn 1. That puts the 21 now up to 5th. He's going to try and see if he can get past that 3 car after holding off Forster. But out in front, Kenneth, Jaden Porter Leading laps here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Schaefer might have gotten a brush of the outside wall. Here comes Ethan Fonseca looking to the outside.
The 21 getting at a push here from Brandon Hawken, who doesn't elect to go to the inside for a position change. Scott Healy making a huge lunge right behind Brandon Hawken and forces his way to 7th in front of Colin Forrest. And that's a big move, and he almost got into the 98 entering the corner. But for the moment, Jaden Porter is going to hold his ground, coming to 20 laps to go from the Brickyard. And one thing that we didn't mention, Francisco, was that you usually think of a tire difference between those who stay out and those who don't, but because the caution came out right at the moment they came down pit road, everybody's on an even playing field.
It will be for the first lap. It'll look exactly the same, but that will make a difference as the tires wear, as drivers drive the car the way the customers see the 21, how high he entered turn 2
Big
there.
crash.
The caution
Craig
flag waits again.
CJ Munier
Upside
among
down.
those involved in
Upside
turn
down.
2. And that's Lance
For a
Hill,
second.
end over end, landing on all fours.
Could have sworn I seen that car upside down. That might have just been the hood that was gone. The car definitely looked like it was upside down for a second. Might not have been. But let's look and see what happened here. There's Lance Hill going through turn 1. You see contact up ahead. Alishire gets into him and hard into the inside wall. And indeed, he did go upside down. So my eyes did not deceive me, Kenneth. We have seen a blown over here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
That is a hellacious crash for Lance Hill, and you saw the others involved. Craig Lounslager, Wyatt Brackett, pair of Merbeady Motorsports teammates, and it really starts up with Adam Alishire and Trevor Haley. So they dive into turn 1. Haley gets the lunge on the inside. Alishire trying to fight him. He just hooks him into the wall by accident. Goes right up into Hill, who goes hard into the inside barrier, comes right up the track. CJ Munier getting a piece of it going sideways, and then Craig Lounslager, of course, getting into the outside wall with his teammate. This is a look on board with Hill, and this is going to get really ugly very soon.
You think about how many crashes have happened here in turn 1 and turn 3, Kenneth, and the short shoot. Look at that. Just a lot of hits and ugly scenes there from the onboard. And you think about just how many big crashes have happened, like I said, in that short shoot between 1 and 2, and even between 3 and 4. You've seen violent crashes happen there in NASCAR and in IndyCar. One of the most memorable ones that, at least that come to my mind, Kenneth, is the Scott Dixon one, where he just went flying into the inside fence. That looked eerily similar to the way that Lance Hill shot back up the racetrack with the car upside down.
Yeah, it looked really scary there for Lance Hill, as there's the field for slowing down for the caution. And they're behind the iRacing official pace car as it stands. So Jaden Porter is going to hold on to the lead. Lance Hill, unfortunately, will be taken out of this race as Eric Schaefer...
No.
Well, he tried.
No. People will do that.
He tried, but he's going to sit in 4th. Lance Hill, though, that is going to be absolutely detrimental to his playoff pursuit. Came into this race 41 points behind the 14th place car in standings. Hill, of course, in the fight with Forrester. Both of them Stonks Motorsports teammates, looking to get a big run tonight from Indy. Unfortunately, it is not going to come down to a fruitful finish for the 1 car, as here's the batch of drivers that are damaged coming onto pit road. Brandon Banks, who caused the last caution before this one, coming in. Craig Lounslager with a bunch of damage on his Ford Mustang. Was going to look for a second straight top 10 finish after a great run at IRP. And then Curtis Kelly, Trevor Haley among those that have come in as well.
But this is definitely what Jaden Porter probably wanted to see. As long as he's the leader, he'll get some pretty good launches and be able to keep the lead, and it'll keep the tires relatively cool and equal as possible, that is. So, and it'll allow him to save fuel. I would say that everybody, as far as we go, the 80 laps is safe on fuel, especially now Jaden Porter. These caution laps help insanely around such a big racetrack like this. You cruise it around here, you go low RPM, and then you can clutch it as well. So Jaden Porter's probably safe on fuel now, thanks to this caution especially. But now you look at the 21, he'll restart in 5th. We'll see what he's able to do from that inside, Kenneth. We've seen him be able to make a move on the outside, at least on the last restart. And we'll see what Benson can do from 3rd. Benson has no allegiance with those 2 around him, both next to him and behind him when they go green. So we'll just have to see if he plays spoiler here. It's been a while since Kyle Benson's gone into victory lane, since late last season. He definitely wants to win a race, Kenneth. We know he wants to.
And for Benson as well, you think of what happened at IRP last week. He got involved in an incident. He got put a lap down early in the race and ended up finishing in 17th after starting in 15th place. So it really wasn't the night that Benson was hoping for, and you're right. Driver who's been hungry to get back at victory lane and scratch that itch. It's been a pretty long while since we've seen Benson occupy victory lane. It was last seen where he won at the Charlotte Roval in the second race of the playoffs. That was the round of 15. So it has been a little while since we've seen Benson, not in the 38 car, take the victory, but it was in his old number 10 when he drove a Chevrolet for Murray Reedy Motorsports. But he could look to get the first win this season on his account and be the second Murray Reedy Motorsports driver to win alongside his teammate Craig Lownslugger, who picked it up at Darlington Raceway. So we'll double them up. We'll have a restart with about 17 laps remaining from the 2.5-mile Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Jaden Porter in control, the Kentucky native, with Lawson Peel on his outside, striving for his 4th win on the calendar year. Kyle Benson on the inside of row 2 in 3rd. Eric Schaefer back in 4th place behind his teammate. Brandon Hawken, we haven't really talked about him much in this strategy conversation, but he's got a shot at things inside the top 5 with Ethan Fonseca Moreno there on his inside. And they're both going to be doubled up in row number 3. Scott Healy, Colin Forrester back in row number 4. Ryan Pandicio in 9th, and AJ Green in the 48, rounding out our current top 10. Well, this is going to get insane. We had a pretty big crash in 1 and 2 the last restart. Do we see some more fireworks hit center stage as the 28 looks to remain out front and hold on to his defense, get his first win of season 6, and his first since Charlotte in the playoffs last season.
Well, Kenneth, the way I see it is that we went 55 laps under the green flag, and now we've had 2 caution flags since, so something tells me we're not over.
Shades of Michigan, right? Long green flag race. Cautions come out late. We have a great run to the finish. Pace cars down. Porter in control on the restart. 17 to go.
And there he goes. He puts the throttle down. He's going to get a good launch, and Benson gets a pretty decent one as well. He's going to stay side by side with Peel with his nose in there. There's the 98 looking to the outside of Eric Schaefer going into turn 1. Fonseca didn't get that good of a launch, but Brandon Hawkins going to surprise Schaefer, and he's going to surprise Benson. He's on the outside of the 38 as well.
What a run by Brandon Hawkins. Sent it 3 wide entering turn 1.
He's going to third.
Comes out of turn 2 and 3rd.
And Schaefer now to the inside of Benson. They'll be side by side for position. There's you see Peel trying to snake off of the 28 to see if he can hang on to 2nd. What a run there by Brandon Hawkins to get up into 3rd.
And he beat the 21 of Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who has slowly worked his way up to 6th. They check up at a turn 3. Kyle Benson had to move from the outside there against Eric Schaefer. But again, this run long enough here. 16 laps to go for the tires to wear out. Lawson Peel on the draft of the 28. Brandon Hawkins settling into 3rd place back to turn 1.
But closing in on Peel as well. So Peel, as much as he wants to get the lead, he has to focus on this 98, who's the closest competitor. He gets into the apron there in turn 1, so Hawkins going to close the gap a little bit into turn 2.
But it's all about how you get the draft out of the 2nd corner to make a move on this back straightaway. You see a lot of drivers set up for this place right here, this long backstretch. Brandon Hawkins is going to follow in the trail of the 12. They're going to snake trail down the backstretch. The 28 still ahead. Kyle Benson looking to the inside on Schaefer for 4th. They make contact, and Schaefer's nearly up into the wall.
He keeps it out of the wall. He's going to lose a couple of spots in the process. Schaefer's not going to be happy with that one, as Forster now looks to the inside of that 3 car. That moves Benson up to 4th. That moves Fonseca up to P5. Forster gonna get turned. He gets hit.
Into the outside wall. He comes back in the middle of the racing line. Curtis Kelly's going to go sideways. He's going to save it. But that's the caution flag with 15 laps to go. And it's another driver in pursuit for a playoff spot with huge damage.
And I was going to mention, Kenneth, that if Forster could get that spot, that would be huge for his point situation. But that right there was also just as huge for his points position, but in a negative way, because he's going to end up with a damaged race car and loss of track position. Turn 3, Schaefer goes up the racetrack, exactly, and then there goes Forster now to the bottom, trying to see if he can take that spot away. That's a battle for 6th. He gets loose on the bottom, and he's going to try... Yeah, it looks exactly like that. He tried to slide in there in front of Healy, but there was just no room for there, and he puts Healy up in a position where he gets into the right rear of Forster, and around goes the 99.
See if we can get a better look at it, but you're right there on the analysis, Francisco. It just appeared that the 99 was going to look to stop the hemorrhaging after getting passed by the 3. Tried to shut the door on the 64. Obviously, he was still there. They made the contact. Curtis Kelly there, the Canadian, swooping through. Good job to save that race car from getting into the outside wall, but the 99 of Forrester with a lot of damage. And you're right. His opportunity at getting a good run this evening from Indianapolis and at least close in the gap that could help him get into the playoffs is going to be squabbled at this point. As Jaden Porter's going to stay out, so is Kyle Benson, but everyone else is coming in for fresh rubber. Oh, man.
I don't know. I don't know about this call, Kenneth. I'm not sure. If we get a rash of cautions, I'm not too sure that's the strategy call I'd want to be on. If we went green, that's a different story, but look how many cars stayed out, Kenneth. Oh, contact with
Brandon
Peel
Hawken.
and the 98.
So they both hit Hawken. Overshoots his pit stall. That's going to lose him a lot of time.
That was with Dawson Peel. I think one car was probably not scored inside the pit stall, and that led to the netcode contact that's go on board here. This is with Brandon Hawken looking back at the 21, but the 21's going to turn in, I believe, afterwards. So Hawken turns in now. Oh, he got hit by the 21.
Yeah, so he started to slow down, and of course Moreno in one of the stalls ahead just got right into him. So there's the Hawken damage on the back end of his Supra. And how much is that going to affect him as we go back green? There's the run out of pit road. Lawson Peel's going to win it. And this is going to put the first car on fresh tires, Francisco, in 10th with under 14 to go.
Let's get a look out of the rear of the 12 to see if we can look at the front end damage on that 21, because you couldn't really tell exiting the pit lane. There it is. So Peel's gonna go into his pit stall, and then right there's the hit just next to him. But fortunately, he was scored in his stall. So even though that contact happened, it wasn't going to affect him. But out here on the racetrack, let's see if we can get a look at the rear bumper out of the 12 car to see that front end of the 21. To see what kind of damage he has, because considering the damage on the rear of the 98, there's got to be some on the front end of the 21.
So this is, again, another look here. And this is going to be from the 21's perspective. I mean, he hits him. I don't think it registered any real damage on Moreno's car.
Yeah, I mean, that's a strange situation, kind of. I've seen this one before, and I know, and I think you remember exactly where it was, too. It was at the Homestead Miami Speedway in the Bunge and Lawn Care Series Championship race. We saw it between title contenders Cole Williams and Blaze McKinney going into the pit lane. It was the same situation. They had the last two pit stalls. The driver with the first pit stall was behind the second place driver, and they go into the pit lane and it makes contact. In that particular instance, it hurt one of the drivers more than the other, and it looks like in this particular race it might hurt Brandon Hawken more than it does Ethan Fonseca, exactly the same way as in that race.
Right, Francisco, I think I agree with you there on if this is the right call. You're going to have fresh tires, but you're not going to have a lot of time to make use of them. And if you have that situation where cautions do come out, yeah, you're also right on that perspective as well. It's going to get infinitely harder to move your way through traffic. So that's going to move Kyle Benson up to second. Porter's still going to have control of the lead. Ryan Pandicio, who could chase down his first career 4-wide win, is in third. AJ Green back in fourth. Kevin D'Elia inside the top 5 with Curtis Kelly to his outside. What a run for Skybox Racing they can build up here at the end. Adam Alashire back in 7th place. Michael Newbraw looking to get a huge points boost for the top 14 in 8th. And then 9th place, Mikey Neal. And 10th place, Lawson Peel, the first car on fresh tires. It'll be 12 laps to go from the Brickyard. And this call could be either disastrous or fruitful for those inside and outside the top 10. But we look up ahead at the 28 of Jaden Porter, who will have control again on the restart. Mikey Neal will give up position. He enters pit road. Pace car is down. Jaden Porter hops on the pedal. We're back underway.
There was some connection issues there for the driver, the 8. That's going to help the inside lane if they fill it up right. Looks like going back to turn 1, it's going to be Jaden Porter. Pandicio looking to the bottom, not able to get there on Kyle Benson. They're going to single file out, and there you see Peel trying to make moves immediately, but not exactly capitalizing on. There was contact between Schaefer and Peel there in turn 1 as Newbraw makes contact. He's going to slide a little bit, does not go around, That's going to open up the outside lane for some of these drivers with newer tires. There goes Schaefer. Fonseca's going to get caught in that.
So it's going to be a single file train. They all checked up. The 21 of Moreno now has to fight through the weeds as there's the 12 and the 3. The 2 cars on fresh rubber going side by side in turn 3 right behind Curtis Kelly. This is going to get close.
And Brandon Hawken with that rear end damage is right all over these two. So he's still in this fight, and he's going to go to the outside of Schaefer as Peel looks to the bottom.
Peel to the inside of Curtis Kelly. This is going to be for 6th place on the racetrack. Hawken makes the move, so the rear end damage not affecting him at all. Meanwhile, at the front, Jaden Porter holding on to the lead by bare minimum. Benson and Pandicio, your top 3.
The question is, does Peel have enough time, even with the new rubber, to make up those positions, to make up that time, especially as the tires wear in the run? If these guys stay single file up in the front, it's going to be very hard for Peel to do so. As there's Hawken now, who gets to the outside, and he's going to have to block Eric Schaefer. He does so there at the last second. They're all going to try to go around the outside of Curtis Kelly.
This is one of the toughest things you have to deal with as a fresh tire car, is weaving your way through the old tire traffic, and it looks like the 21 of Moreno was getting the worst end of that. He got checked up as he was looking to get around the 71 of Curtis Kelly. Peel gains big time on Kevin D'Elia out of 4, but again, we don't know if that's enough time that he has left in the tank. Here comes Schaefer, dive on the inside. This is for 7th.
Looks like Hawken made a mistake or got the outside wall off of turn 4. And close racing there as they almost make contact in turn 1 as now Peel looks to the inside of D'Elia.
Peel on the inside of the 53.
And D'Elia fights him.
Moved up. The 53 of D'Elia was giving it all he's got. He made contact with the 12 car.
And here comes Brandon Hawken.
What a run this is turning out to be, and the fresh tire cars are losing time. It'll be 9 laps to go. This time through from Indianapolis, Schaefer and Hawken remain side by side, exiting turn 3, and up in the front, Jaden Porter pulling out to 3/10 over Kyle Benson.
He still has a comfortable lead there, and Peel only now just gets ahead of Kevin D'Elia. So D'Elia, masterful job defending there, and now he's going to have the likes of Eric Schaefer and Brandon Hawken trying to battle for position behind him, as now Peel has a little bit of gap before he gets up to AJ Green with 8 laps to go.
Lawson Peel has worked himself into the top 5 as they're almost 3 wide. Back there, Kevin D'Elia having to wheel the race car to keep it straight. That's the short shoot, turns 1 and 2.
There goes
and
Moreno.
Here comes Moreno, powering on the outside. He makes the move for 7th. D'Elia's around, hard into the inside wall on the backstretch.
Does he go back up to the racetrack?
No, it's not. We stay green.
He did not go back up to the racing surface, so no yellow. We'll see just how big of a role this has in the end of the race, as now looks like the 28 has about a 4/10 of a second lead on Benson, as Peel's now caught up to the back of AJ Green.
Here's a look on board with the Clemens, North Carolina native of AJ Green, who strives for a top 5, but he's got the fresh rubber behemoth of Lawson Peel right behind him. It'll be 8 laps to go, this time from Speedway, Indiana.
How aggressive does Lawson Peel get in making these moves? You see, he has the better grip. He's able to go in there in the corner a lot better, but he also has Brandon Hawken right behind him, so he can't just be willy-nilly with these moves. As he looks to the bottom again, can't make the move, as AJ Green does get chopped up as well by Pandicio. Peel's gonna have to wait to turn 3. His contact with, I think it was the 98 and the 21.
And here comes Moreno, who looks to the inside. He'll get the draft off the 12 car, who peels down low to get underneath AJ Green. This is going to break him into the top 4 and going to get him right near Ryan Pandicio, Kyle Benson, and your race leader by about half a second rather, Jaden Porter. 7 to go from Indianapolis. Does Peel have enough time left?
He's made good work. He's got time. It's going to be 7 laps to go. He's got an opportunity, but he's got to make quick work of these next couple of cars. But with every pass, it's going to be increasingly difficult, especially with someone like Kyle Benson in front of him, as he does get past Pandicio. So now he's got 2 cars left before he gets to the front of the field, as now the 98 and 21 follow through, and there's Schaefer now getting past AJ Green.
That might be an imperative pass done by Lawson Peel, because as Ryan Pandicio can hold Hawken and Moreno up, this is going to allow Peel, if he makes a mistake, not to be able to be caught by anyone else on fresh rubber. Peel's going to look to the outside this time for 2nd in turn 3.
And Pandicio blocked the 21 all the way to the bottom of the racetrack, and it looks like he got sent into turn 3. The 21's going to be side by side with the 98. Pandicio loses 3 spots in that corner. as the 98's going to hold off the 21 once again, but now this is the battle with 6 laps to go. Lawson Peel has the sights on your race leader.
Bit of the contact between the teammates, Ryan Pandicio and Brandon Hawken getting together as Moreno was right in the middle of that, but this is it. Lawson Peel, who has a chance on the fresh tires to make use of his call under caution. It'll be 5 laps to go next time by. This is a big run out of turn 2. Peel will have the chance to the backstretch.
He's going to have the draft here. Porter's going to try and break it. The question is, what line do you want to give the 12? Do you want to give yourself the bottom? Do you want to give yourself the outside? Peel's looking down low. Does he have the grip?
And Moreno is inside Kyle Benson for third. Peel's going to hold on to the inside. Porter keeps him honest. And Porter holds on to the lead in turn 3.
Can Jaden Porter buy Ethan Fonseca some time? That's a teammate that he's got behind him.
And Aaron Schaefer further back in the picture behind Brandon Hawkins, so he cannot help. Peel, tire to the inside.
What a block!
Onto the brown of bricks. He looks back outside. Back to the inside. He's crossing over the 28 to no avail. Now to turn 1. He's got it. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
And there's Moreno.
And
Porter's not going to fight him. That's his teammate. And this will be the duel with 5.5 laps, or 4.5 laps left here at Indianapolis. Eric Schaefer to the inside of Kyle Benson, trying to lead Brandon Hawken on the way through on fresh tires. And it's 0.3 of a second. Peel has control.
But does Fonseca have enough time to close that gap and make a move? That's what it's going to come down to. They have the same tire levels. Looks like Benson got into the wall, racing the 98 of Hawken. He's going to lose that position as Eric Schaefer now stares the back of Jaden Porter for a podium position.
We have seen 3 different races tonight here at Indianapolis. The first was the race under strategy, the second, the race through traffic, and now the third, the dead-on race for the win between Lawson Peel and Ethan Fonseca Moreno. How many times, Francisco, have we seen these two come head-to-head in the winning laps of a race? Bristol comes to mind first immediately, but there have been many times, many with this 21 and the 12, have found themselves nose to tail in the final laps of the race as Eric Schaefer clears Jaden Porter for third.
And who would have thought here at the end of the race, Kenneth, that the big 3 of the entire season would be in the top 3 in the closing stages of the race?
They have been the best drivers all night long and have been maneuvering through traffic.
Peel on the wall!
Peel into the outside wall in the short chute.
We'll see how much that affects him here on the straightaways. You see he's battling handling on his race car. The handling is going away on the 12 car. It's going to allow the 21 to do
Caution
something
flag.
here as caution comes out.
And we're going to find out who it is. We're going to have a run to the checkered. And it's Adam Alishire, who goes sideways in what presumes to be turn 4.
Indeed, turn 4, and big damage on the front end of that race car. You see the suspension damage there. But wow, Kenneth, that was an intense battle there that we saw them going through the traffic, and what could have been, as looks like Trevor Haley's going to get into the back of the 91, going into turn 3. 91 slides up the track, gets into the wall, and I don't know, does that look like he tried to turn back down?
I don't know, but it's been a rough race for Adam Alishire from the start to finish, and we'll look at it again. He just goes wide in turn 3, and he's in the outside 3 wide basically as Michael Newbraw comes into the picture. Yeah, he comes right down into the 4 car. It looks
Not
like
happy.
just dumps him. I don't think he was happy at all with Trevor Haley exiting the corner. We'll get a better look at it. This is from the overhead shot, and you'll see Haley actually gives him the bumper entering turn 3. So Alishire was saying, this is the payback for what you just did. You put me in the wall, now I'm going to put you back up there.
Yeah, and you see Newbraw just had nowhere else to go there. Gets into the back of the 91 for that matter into turn 4. And Indiana Alishire comes off worse than that situation. Not ideal for the 91. He's trying to stay top 20 in the points to make that win count for a wild card spot. But here we are, Kenneth. Indianapolis Motor Speedway and an overtime finish.
Well, how about it? As there's Lawson Peel and Moreno and Schaefer and Hawken. That's your top 4. These are the guys on the freshest set of tires. And I believe Jaden Porter has taken his Chevrolet into pit road. Yes, he has. Kyle Benson,
Several
Michael
cars.
Newbraw, several drivers in. So this is their last effort to potentially gain some more spots in the final laps.
Porter looked like he was probably going to end up with a 4th or 5th place finish if he had gone on the way, and it looks like he's going to have about a 15 lap fresher tires than most of the field, and he's going to restart possibly in the 9th spot. So you see this call, I would take it. If I was in Jaden Porter's spot, that's not a bad call. I think I would take it. Obviously, I said I wouldn't make the call these guys did on their previous stop, and it ended up working out, but that's why I'm not on the racetrack here tonight. But here they are now with a chance at the race win. Jaden Porter trying to see if he can get a top 5 finish out of this. And Colin Forrester, Kenneth, after being involved in the incidents, he's up in the 8th spot. Christopher Bishop, fantastic job in 7th. And Patrick Thompson, salute yourself for being in the top 5 right now.
And the 88 car, remember, he was on the same strategy as your leaders at this point in time. Pio, Moreno, Schaefer, not really Hawken, who was kind of somewhere on an off strategy in his own realm. But for Patrick Thompson, I mean, he had been following the likes of Pio and Schaefer for what appears to be most of this race on their strategy to stay out long and then come in later. And he was part of that group that came on pit road as soon as that caution waved. So Patrick Thompson, what a run this is turning out to be. And it could be as well a strategy race that ends up in his favor. Probably not for a race win, as it looks like Pio, Moreno, and Schaefer are way too strong to overcome. But you never know. Never know what could happen. Contact goes down in the middle of the corners as these guys are desperate to get race wins. And for Pio, Moreno, and Schaefer after this race, they know no matter what happens from here on out to Talladega, they're going to make the playoffs, no matter what happens. Patrick Thompson is one of those drivers that's fighting for his playoff life. He doesn't know whether the next week will come around and he'll be either there or in contention to gain more points for Chicagoland at the playoffs beginning. So this is going to be a monumental restart, not only for those up front for the win, but for the 88 of Patrick Thompson, even a bit of Scott Healy in the 64, a driver who had struggled last week at IRP after getting into a big crash and had been looking to find his way to victory lane in Season 6 with its Xfinity Series car. We've got a lot on the line, Francisco. This is going to be fun. Who you got?
The pace car. I think that's the safe answer there. That car's going to come out clean in all of this. But no, Kenneth, you think about the drivers up there. You mentioned Patrick Thompson. He's tied. He is tied for the last position going into this race in the playoff cut line, and right now he's running in the 5th spot. Jesse Prees was up there above the cut line. Tyler Murray, those guys have had their fair share of struggles in this race. This is an opportunity for Patrick Thompson to move above the cut line. Michael Newbraw, who was involved in that incident, he was below the cut line. Adam Alshire, Lance Hill, Colin Forster, they had their fair share of issues. Christopher Bishop in the 20th spot, looking like it's going to have to come down to a win, and he's in the top 10 as well. But for guys like Craig Lautenschlager, you look at or AJ Green, some of these guys could still come away with decent enough points to solidify the next 3 races so they don't have to stress as much as they have to. But for Colin Forster, that's one of the guys who has to keep it clean on this restart. Entering the race, he was 50 points out. If he's able to come up with a top 10, it at least keeps him with a mathematical shot of getting in on points. As the pace car is going to move its way into the pit lane with that left turn right here, the field will be in the hands of Lawson Peel as he'll launch very early. How well of a restart does Schaefer get? It actually times out really good. The teammates are able to be 1-2.
And the 21 got caught off guard. He got the push from the 98 of Brandon Hawkins. So the 12 and the 3 to first and second going into turns 1 and 2. We're going to be side by side almost for 4th place. Scott Healy looking inside. Big crash. One car hard into the wall. CJ Winier, Christopher Bishop. It's a big one in turn 1.
It looked like for a second that I saw the 48. Doesn't look like he was involved. But there you see the 9 car, the 42 who you just mentioned, could use the points to gain on the drivers, to give himself that shot. CJ Munier, not the first time he's been involved in an incident tonight. Gets some more damage on his race car. So we'll get a look and see what happened here. These guys are getting more and more aggressive. There you see Jaden Porter is behind the 42. He's behind all of this, and he's got those newer tires. So there he goes to the outside. Looks like some contact there and around. Oh, wow. And Mikey Neal almost ends up on his side for a second rollover of the night, but his car stays on the racetrack. There you see Lautenschlager slow way down, so he doesn't get any piece of that. But that was an aggressively hard hit to the outside wall as Porter was going around the outside with the newer tires.
There's the 28 going on the outside. There's that bit of contact. The 42 drifted up just a tad. And there's where the contact is made. The 42 goes hard into the outside wall. That car is torn up. And then there's everybody else in it. CJ Munier, Tyler Murray, of course Brandon Gillis, who comes into the crash late. This is a look on board from the league owner. Man,
boom,
that's a
all
hard
of a
hit.
sudden
And
you
that's
see-
one of his teammates, too. That's a car that he owns.
Yeah.
And then Murray comes
then he
down
gets hit
into
right
Brandon
there.
Gillis.
Yeah, he's not going to like that one. He's going to spend a lot of money on this evening if that's the way the end of the race is going to play out.
So another caution flies here with 3 laps to go. So that will extend this race past distance like we did on the last restart. And it should extend even further. So we are going way over 80 laps here tonight from Indianapolis with a competitive race on our hands. But what a restart that was between Lawson Peel and Eric Schaefer to work together. As they hopped on the gas pedal, they caught the 21 off guard. He got on the gas pedal a little late. Now the 12 and the 3 will have command of the inside and the outside when we go back to racing.
And to explain to our viewers why that happens is, remember, those two up in the front, they're in the same call together. They're able to make that strategy call together of being able to go at the exact same time in order to best the competition. That's why you want to have teammates up there to be able to do that. Give yourself that gap and then fight amongst yourselves. That is certainly what the 12 and the 3 were thinking there in order to get the 3 past the 21. Now, they'll each be able to start in each lane, but if I'm the 21, I'd rather restart in third than in second, have the leader right in front of me. I just feel that there's a natural way of being able to launch better when being behind the leader compared to next to him, to give yourself at least a fighting chance of getting up to second and then trying your best from there. But at this point, this late in the race, if you're not the leader of the race, you have to hope that said leader makes a mistake for you to do something here.
Well, this will be a crucial restart for all 3 of these guys. Peel, Schaefer, and Moreno all searching for different wins of their own. Peel, of course, looking to become the first 4-time winner this season. Eric Schaefer looking to defend his throne at Indianapolis, where he has won the last 2 in Season 4 and Season 5. And Ethan Fonseca Moreno looking to grab his first win since Bristol back in race number 9. It's been a little while since we've seen car number 21 reach victory lane. We've seen him be close, but never capturing the cigar. Moreno will also tie Peel for 3 wins on the season if he's able to get it. Brandon Hawken will look to get his second W after being close week after week. It always feels like he's in contention to win a race. Scott Healy looking for his first this season. Colin Forster looking for his first this season with a pretty damaged race car and just aiming to survive as we will double up with the lights off. From the iRacing official pace car, we will have our second attempt at a green-white checkered here from the Brickyard. Francisco, man, could we have ever expected this kind of race? Maybe at around lap 40.
No.
Never.
That's the easy answer, and it certainly looked that way at the time, that this was not within the realm of possibility. But that's why we sit here and we watch these races, because at any moment, anything can go different. And at that point, it's certain calls, certain strategy decisions at a certain point, and execution all plays a role in how you get here at this point in the race, especially when the race becomes a race of attrition in the way it has. And that's why we see Lawson Peel, Eric Schaefer, Ethan Fonseca in the top 3. Even with all the speed they have, they've played the strategy cards right. You see Brandon Hawken up there in the 4th spot, and Colin Forster, Kenneth, up there in 6th. It's also pretty good to see. He has to keep this up, like I said, keep the clean car, but also get a good finish. Kyle Benson's up there in the 8th spot as well. Porter lost a couple of positions with that contact, of course. But I'm pretty sure Benson and some of those also have some fresh tires. I don't know. I don't think they'll get up there with Peel, but never say never.
And the question you ask here, if you're Brandon Hawken or Ethan Fonseca Moreno, how do we beat the teammates? Peel and Schaefer will be working together for sure on this restart in order to control both lanes. Now, who's going to be ahead of the other? We'll see. But for the 98 and the 21, they've got a uphill battle in their hands with 2 laps to go. The 3 car and the 12 car will go side by side in row number 1. They will bring us back to action on our second attempt at a green-white checkered here from the yard of bricks. Pace car is down. Peel and Schaefer working together on the restart. We're back under green. Can we finish it this time?
And Schaefer doesn't get as good of a launch, but he still has Brandon Hawken to the outside, just barely. Hawken gets squeezed out towards the wall a little bit, but Hawken's still there. He's going to get a good run. Slight contact, but the 98 is staying on the outside. He has a fighting chance into turn 2 as the 21 will settle into 4th. They're racing very hard for second. Peel's able to scoot away. The 98 gets into the wall.
They almost got into each other fully to create a caution flag. Schaefer is going to hold on to second. The 21's going to dive to the inside of Hawken. He's not going to help him. They're 3 wide entering turn 3 as they split Colin Forrester in the 99. The 21 bumps the 98 up the racetrack as Lawson Peel looks for the white flag.
Schaefer's not close enough to do anything at least right now. It's Lawson Peel trying to break that streak that Eric Schaefer's had. Schaefer's still trying to go for 3 in a row at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We make it to the white flag. The race becomes official. Aggressive racing going on from 5th on back as Hawken and Ethan Fonseca falling back to that crowd. What can Eric Schaefer do on the final lap? He's trying to close down the gap. You see him using a lot of the racetrack, Kenneth. He is not giving up. He's within car lengths of his teammate. It'll come down to the final half a lap from Indy.
Here we go, out of turn 2 to the white flag. Schaefer brushes the wall. We're side by side at a huge gaggle of cars, third on back, but it will not have an effect on this race. For the win, Lawson Peel looking to stay up front now by 0.3 of a second, entering turns 3 and 4. And Schaefer, not enough in the tank this time by. The 12 car comes out of the final corner. He will take the win at Indianapolis Motor Speedway and become a 4th-time winner in Season 6. Checkered flag for Mississippi's Lawson Peel at the Yard of Bricks.
And look at that finish from 3rd on back as AJ Green goes spinning after the finish line. I believe the 21 gets the 3rd spot with Brandon Hawken in 4th. Wow. An incredible job for Lawson Peel on getting his 4th win of the season, Kenneth. 3 in a row for that team when you go back to the Kansas Speedway where Lawson Peel was able to take the win there. And looking at Eric Schaefer last week at the Indianapolis Indianapolis Raceway Park, and now here at the Big Indy Oval, those two teammates have been very strong all season. They've been the top 2 in points. So you see the congratulation taps from all these fellow racers as they're going down on the cool-down lap. Lawson Peel, Kenneth, he won 7 times in Season 4. He won 7 times in Season 5, and we've considered him to be struggling this season. We have not quite yet made the playoffs, and that's win number 4. So I think he's quickly starting to turn that thing around and show everybody that he's getting acclimated to these Xfinity cars. It might not be in dominating fashion like it used to be, but he's still a contender as he'll get some damage on that left side.
And celebrating deservedly so here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, he says game on for the top spot in the point standings after tonight. Lawson Peel takes his 4th win of the season, and we'll head right into Paul's setup shop, victory lane from Indianapolis. And you're right,
one of the best
Francisco,
victory lanes.
just the pace that Lawson Peel has been able to win races at. We thought he was off pace this season, but it looks like he's back on track to get those 7, if not more, as we head into the playoffs.
Indeed so, Kenneth. We're quickly approaching the end of the season. He's still going to have opportunities to win races. It could very well get to 7 again before the season's over, especially if he keeps up races like this. I mean, he was in contention, but you just kept thinking at some point it might have been the 21, it might be the 98, it might be the 3. It was the 12 tonight. And like I said, one of the best victory lanes to go to. They have that ladder or elevator that you can put the car in, and it carries itself up to the top. That's going to be a fun victory lane to visit for Lawson Peel. I'm sure he's going to enjoy that one. His first win at Indianapolis in 4-wide racing competition.
So the 12 car of Lawson Peel grabs his first win here at the Yard of Bricks and gets his 4th win of the season. Eric Schaefer, his teammate, coming short in 3rd, but you have to credit both of these guys for creating a ballsy strategy midway through the race and making it work and using some of those nicely timed caution flags to their advantage. And of course, the 2-way showdown at the last restart, commanding both lanes at the green flag. Ethan Fonseca Moreno will come away with his 2nd straight top 3 finish. He will end up 3rd place here tonight. So on the Indy double, it'll be 2 third-place finishes for the California native. AJ Green will come home in 4th. Nice run for the North Carolina driver. Brandon Hawken, who was the other driver in the main group of guys we were talking about in contention for the win. Hawken ends up 5th. 6th place goes to Scott Healy. 7th to the rookie Ryan Pandiccio. Curtis Kelly will come home in 8th. A really quiet night from Curtis Kelly, but a great one nonetheless. Jaden Porter is in 9th. And Kyle Benson in the 38 rounds out tonight's top 10.
11th will go to Brandon Banks, with 12th going to Michael Newbraw. CJ Muniero ends up recovering for the 13th spot. Patrick Thompson fell down to the 14th there. Alan Forster ends up 15th at the restarting 6th. Mikey Neal will end up in the 16th spot, with Craig Lounslugger being your last car on the lead lap. Tyler Murray will finish in 18th. Daniel Moore, after that rough start, will end up in 19th, with Brandon Gillis rounding out your top 20.
So behind them in 21st, Christopher Bishop, who went hard into the outside wall rather. Trevor Haley, 8 laps down in 22nd. He got involved in that crash with the car who sits behind him at the results. Adam Alashire in the 91 car. We'll see what race control says about that incident near the end of the race. Kevin D'Elia is 24th. Lance Hill in 25th after going for an end-over-end tumble in turns 1 and 2. Wyatt Brackett will come home 26th. Austin Reedy in 27th. And David Brackett rounding out tonight's 28 car field. It appears Austin Reedy and Wyatt Brackett, I mean, those drivers kind of behind the 8 ball at the start, especially the 34 getting damaged before we even dropped the green flag. And that closes out the entire field here from the Brickyard. We'll bring in the 4-time winner this season, Lawson Peel, to Paul's Setup Shop, Victory Lane. And Lawson, I said it earlier, but I'm going to say it to you now. It looks like this was an easy statement. Game on to your teammate Eric Schaefer for the points lead. You guys have swung on it back and forth over the last several weeks. Tonight, you hold on in clutch fashion to get this win from Indy. What was that like? Your emotions, your thoughts after the W?
Yeah, it's funny how that keeps happening, isn't it? But no, obviously I want him to win if I can't win, and I think he would say the same about me. But yeah, well, I think we both had our work cut out for us beating those other guys. I think, once again, probably had the speed to run third or fourth. Kind of same old story that's been going on, which, I'm not going to complain about that. I mean, I'm happy to be able to run in the top 5 as consistent as I am, but I'm just not as fast as Hawken and Ethan and Luke and, TJ Burris when he shows up in this car. So committed to that no caution strategy pretty early to try to two-stop it. Kind of flashbacks of Pocono there a little bit. And I really, really thought that was going to work. So I was disappointed that didn't pan out because I thought we had it really in the catbird seat, Schaefer and I both, on that strategy. I don't know. I really wanted to see how it was going to shake out. I was really interested to see. But I felt like we had the strategy dialed up right there. So but had to go to battle there those last 20 laps, and thankfully I think just made the right decision there on when I pit. I was worried, somebody's going to come on that green, white, checkered on tires just like a bat out of hell and pass everybody, but thankful to just get on out there and get away and bring home another win back to back. That's pretty cool. Been a while since I've been able to do that, so real happy about that.
And talk about those last several restarts. You had Ethan Fonseca Moreno in the mix, Brandon Hawken, of course, Jaden Porter, who had stayed out up front, and a lot of the situations where either you were cutting through traffic or playing defense on either end of the spectrum. And talk about those last restarts there with Eric Schaefer. How crucial was he in this play to hold on to the top 2 spots and be able to walk away 1-2 at the end with all the competition just kind of on your heels right behind you?
Yeah. Obviously when we started, I started 10th and he started 12th there with, about 15 to go, or whenever we took the green, and getting through traffic is really treacherous. I stacked him up a couple times. He was getting pushed into me, and same with Hawken and Ethan coming too, but he can't. I mean, it's just so hard to pass in this car, especially on the bottom in turns 2 and 4. You just get choked off on the exit on the bottom so bad. So just setting up your passes for one, and just having to do them one at a time, and knowing that if you don't get clear in the a certain corner here or there, that means the guy behind you is probably gonna pass you. So that got pretty lucky getting through that traffic. That was tough, and not having the use of like the side draft and stuff in this car is different for me. I just find it easier to carve through traffic in that 8 car. Just I feel like there's more tools at my disposal and things I can do. But passing in this car is just really hard, man.
Francisco and I were talking about it as you got to the checkered flag. I mean, this season, we considered it sort of a struggling one a little bit for you, especially considering that Season 4 and Season 5 were filled with wins. 7 wins on either season, and then only 3 up until tonight. With this 4th win, does that put you back on track to get 7 or more by the end of the season?
I hope so. We'll see. I mean, I'm certainly, both of these wins the past 2 weeks. It's they've been races I very easily could have lost. It's not like yeah, like I had the whole field covered. I mean, just really having to work for it, and the competition with new members in the league versus the past seasons is just the competition's at a whole new higher level now, which is really fun and just makes it really interesting. And then with this car, obviously, I'm just not near as fast as some of these guys. Like I was saying earlier. Fast enough to run in the top 5, and again, I'm not going to complain about that. I'm happy about that, but got to find a way, like I was trying to do tonight, to do something on strategy to kind of offset, find a way to beat those guys. So happy I was able to do that.
I think we might have to give you the nickname of Clutch Gene, Lawson Peel, because, Kansas and tonight, you had to stay up front with a pretty tall task on your shoulders to keep everyone at bay. You do so twice in the last 3 weeks. We head to Texas now, which I'd argue is one of your favorite tracks for sure in 4-wide history, because while Eric Schaefer had the last 2 wins locked up here at Indianapolis in Season 4 and Season 5, in those same seasons, you won both races at Texas Motor Speedway. So how does that play into your confidence level after tonight's win going into Texas and your past history there too?
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to make a good showing again. I'm thinking it's just going to be the same challenges and, battling the same guys, obviously. This car is going to drive different there. But, a lot of the tracks we're going to, I like the way this car drives better than the A car. It's a lot of these tracks, honestly, places like Phoenix, Darlington, places like that. I think that Texas is really finicky. So I think that that'll be a fun race in this car.
It'll be a lot of fun seeing you out on track there at a place that you've been definitely successful at. You've reached the top level there multiple times before, and we'll see if you can do it again. But on behalf of tonight's win from Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the final laps and in green-white checkered territory, Lawson, who do you got to thank for this one?
Yep, the normal crew, you guys for doing the broadcast, TJ's team for sponsoring the league, Tyler Murray, Drinking Bros Racing, Paul's Setup Shop.
Well, Lawson, we certainly appreciate the time on behalf of our broadcast team. Congratulations on the win here from IMS, and we'll see you at Texas Motor Speedway next week. Go celebrate.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
So Lawson Peel in the 12 in Indianapolis Victory Lane. It looks like DBR also gets both races on this Indy double. And Francisco, we'll toss it over to you. You're caught up with the driver who comes home second place out of the DBR duo. It's Eric Schaefer in the 3.
Well, Eric Schaefer, it wasn't a three-peat from Indy, but it was another solid run, ends up P2. Can you kind of take us through what it was like through the first half of the race where it was all green flag and then the rash of yellows there in the second half?
Yeah, man. The first half of the race, I was enjoying the clean air, if you know what I mean. Until I decided to start saving some gas there and gave the lead up. But no, the green flag run, I was very surprised that we went that long without a first caution, man. This track is, with this car, it gets so tight that it gets really loose off. And I figured some of the guys would, I wouldn't say lose talent, but, just hinder themselves with the way the car was handling if they weren't used to it. So I figured we'd have a couple more cautions of what we actually did.
And obviously, we saw the different strategies played out. It sounded like you were trying to make that two-stop strategy work earlier on, and that certainly brought back memories from Pocono. Was that exactly what you were aiming for, to make that two-stop strategy work? And do you think it would have worked?
Oh, absolutely. I was a lap more to the good than Lawson was. I was actually clutching and cutting the car off, saving fuel. Yeah, it definitely would have worked, man. I don't know. I just hate playing fuel mileage races like this. If we would have had like another 15 laps, I think that fuel mileage wouldn't have been involved. But hey, that's part of racing, part of strategy. But no, I was definitely good to go on the two stop. I was able to save enough on the second round that the two stop would have definitely worked for me.
And how do you feel, Eric, now knowing that you're locked in on points to the playoffs? With 2 wins as well to your name, how do you feel about going into these last 3 races at Texas, Iowa, and Talladega? How do you feel about going into those races just knowing you have nothing to worry about as far as points? It's going to purely come down to seeding, which by the look of it, is going to be either first or second between yourself and your teammate.
Yeah, me and Lawson were talking about that during the race. He was like, "Man, we got to get back up front. We got to get back in front." I was like, "Lawson, we're points racing, bro. Just you don't have to always win." And then he was like, "All right, but no, going to Texas and Iowa, man. I'm very excited about going there. I love Texas. I know Lawson's the just defending winner there the last 2 seasons, but he upset me here tonight with my record, so I'm going to go try to upset him at Texas. But no, Talladega, Talladega's a crapshoot, so being locked in automatically, it's a lot of pressure off my back going to that track.
And of course, Eric, another great effort here tonight, coming off your win last week and a P2 here tonight. We'll give you the floor to give the shout out to everybody who helps make this possible for you every single week.
Yeah, huge shout out to you and Kenneth, man. Thank y'all for, like I always tell you, thank you for as much as you do for us on the broadcast. It's always amazing. Thank you to Tyler and all the admins and Four Wide. Shout out to all the drivers, man. There's a lot of good guys in here. We have a ball together. And shout out to Reaper Speed Labs, Paul Setup Shop, and all the DVR guys, man. I appreciate everybody.
We appreciate the time you take with us every week, Eric, and we hope to see you out there at the Texas Motor Speedway. And congrats on another top 3 finish here tonight.
Thanks, guys.
So that's Eric Schaefer, driver of the 3 car, came into this race first in point standings, and he'll look to probably continue to hold on to that as we move forward to the end of the regular season. We'll bring in the 3rd place driver. That is Ethan Fonseca Moreno, his 2nd straight podium with IRP. And it wasn't there we go. So wasn't a crash this time around, Ethan. Obviously, that's a good thing. And you finished 3rd in the last 2 races. IRP last week, Indianapolis tonight. How did that go from your perspective and from the strategy point of things as well? How were you shaping it up to be before all those cautions came out and you guys had to go straight up running to the finish?
Should have won this race. That strategy stuff hurt my brain. Like, I didn't really know what to do. I was just following. I saw Brandon had pit like right before me, so I was just going with him. So, figuring some stuff because he is. I mean, in my eyes, I see him as like a math nerd kind of, so he knows what to do. So, yeah, I had like a 6-7 second lead or something like that, and I was like, just kind of cruising, just driving away, and then all this strategy stuff just came in, and it just, I don't know. It's not something that I enjoy. I don't really like to. I like to just straight up drive, not have to use my brain too much, just and I mean, because like I did like a bunch of laps at this track and got my stuff together, ready to win this race and stuff. But yeah, strategy totally ruined it, and just losing track position a couple times there just ruined my run. I felt like I had a good shot to catch up to Lawson and go past him for the win before we had those two last cautions. We did have like a little run going there, but yeah, just unfortunate. Got to settle with 3rd again.
And you mentioned there that 2nd place running before the caution came out. You were on your way in that pursuit to catch Lawson Peel for P1 and what would have been the race win if that went green. But as you see the cautions come out, lap after lap, how do you try and hunker down and stay focused through all the cautions and through all those sort of stop and go moments on the track?
Oh man, it throws me off quite a bit because then I gotta get myself ready to go back to another restart, and which I'm not really good at. So yeah, I just rely a lot on having like a 10-lap run or a long run, but just something I'm gonna have to get better at moving forward.
Well, regardless, in the last handful of races, you've had an average finish of 5 since Watkins Glen. You finished in the top 5 or top 10 in each of those races, 2 top 3s in a row. And after tonight's race, it should be noted that you most likely will be completely clinched into the playoffs on points alone. So how does that change your approach, or does it at all as you move into Texas, Iowa, and Talladega to end the regular season?
Doesn't really change my approach at all. I still want to win these races. I haven't won in a good bit, so getting a little bit more hungry for a win. So yeah, really nothing changes there. Not sure if I'll be there for Iowa, but yeah, just gotta keep grinding at it.
Still knocking on the door for another win here in Season 6. Ethan, before we let you go, on the top 3 finish from Indianapolis, anybody in particular you want to thank for tonight's run?
I thank my team, my partners, Jimmy John's, Reem, all that's good stuff. And yeah, thank you to all those partners and team owners, drivers. Jaden did a pretty good job at letting me know whenever people pit and what strategies people were on. So that was good and helpful.
Well, Ethan, we certainly appreciate the time. We want to hand out our congratulations on your 3rd place finish here from the Brickyard, and best of luck as we move forward to Texas.
Appreciate it.
So that's Ethan Fonseca Moreno closing out our top 3 interview segment of the broadcast. And we got all 3 of those thoughts, Francisco. Of course, it comes down to the narrative we've been pushing for most of this race. The top 3 drivers in this series, cream rising to the top. You can't really argue with the best in this series, and we've got a stout 3 drivers that are looking for a championship this season. And Indianapolis tonight definitely showed it. Whether it was on the strategy side of things or the dead-on racing side of things, we saw it all.
And of course, Kenneth, that's the case. We've seen them be the top 3 all season long, and they're looking to try and capture wins before we get to Chicagoland to open the playoffs. But for them, it's all about Chicagoland, and then after the races afterwards of that, because they know they're going to be a part of the playoffs based on the way the points will work out after tonight. And that's when the points will reset. They'll get some bonuses there based on their points and how many wins they have. But apart from that, it's basically a restart. They have to hope they start Chicagoland and have a good run there. That way they can breathe at least for a week, and knowing that they got the first race out of the way, they can have a good run. Then they have to have a good run in order to feel that way. Otherwise, you go into Rockingham and Richmond and you're already behind the 8 ball. And knowing how many little races they have in the playoffs compared to the regular season in its entirety, you don't want to go in with that kind of deficit. So at least with them, they have to mentally start preparing for Chicagoland, knowing that these next couple of weeks, it's just about winning races, since they already know they're going to be a part of the playoffs.
And they've been the best so far this season. It's always been a question of who can stop them, and we'll see come playoff time. But in terms of the top 14, Francisco, that is only getting closer. We saw Lance Hill, Colin Forster, Adam Alshire, a lot of those guys who are either looking for, in Alshire's case, a wild card spot after winning at Daytona, and for Hill and Forster, just a chance to enter the top 14. All of them with significant issues in tonight's race. They're going to have a big one next week at Texas Motor Speedway. Another 1.5 miler this season, Francisco. It's different since it's repave and reconfiguration in 2017. What's the challenge for the field as we head to next Wednesday's outing?
Well, Texas is going to be interesting, especially now with the oval refresh, Kenneth. I'm not exactly sure what to expect. We see in real life they're able to run that 3rd lane, especially on old runs, long runs. They're able to put that 3rd lane up to use. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what we'll see out of Texas. I hope so. That way we could get some multi-group action there. But I'm excited. Texas with these cars is especially fun to run at, especially under the sunlight. You saw Lawson Peel capture a championship here in seasons past. Now it's a regular season race, but down the stretch. But you also have to look at guys like Colin Forster, Lance Hill, for Adam Alshire trying to maintain that top 20 spot with that race win. So there's still plenty of names that are trying to get into the playoffs. Luke Canup going to continue missing some races, so I believe he's going to be out of the playoffs. But that's going to open the door for somebody else. The question is, who's going to take that opportunity?
It's all up in the air. The races are coming down to a close, and we don't have a lot of time left until the playoffs begin at Chicagoland Speedway. As we head into Texas, though, everyone's going to look to stop Sheriff Lawson Peel, who has picked up the last 2 wins, both in Season 4 and in Season 5. That'll do it for our coverage of tonight's 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series race from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. For Tyler Murray and everyone from the admin team and race council at 4Wide, for Charlie Beyer and Keelan Belsha at the KBueno Racing Network, and for the crew on the broadcast tonight, for my colleague in the booth, Francisco Bacallao, I'm Kenneth Bueno, saying so long from the Brickyard. Congratulations to Lawson Peel on his 4th win of the season. We'll see if he defends his crown next week at Texas Motor Speedway.